And I flew off the handle.
Now you're like,
and I called her and I just said, holy smoke, something's going on. And that's just my law enforcement, background telling me, okay, if you're hiding something, now I know something's wrong. What you're going to find out is that they couldn't even keep the rules on signature gathering, and that they actually cheated. In the fall of 2025, my case gets dismissed. And then probably 2 weeks later, a whistleblower gives me that case, the case, 200 pages I get in the mail.
People are not probably realizing how serious that is.
It is serious.
You have a government officials openly lying and concealing evidence in an open courtroom.
Right.
And the investigators are saying, maybe you need to not send out the ballots because we've looked at these are forged.
Welcome out to God and Country. I'm Uriah Kennedy, and this is Ingrid Bettridge. We've got a couple of great guests on with us today. We're going to talk about our illegitimate governor and really get down to the brass tacks of what happened in convention, what happened with the signatures, what's currently happening in the court cases. This is all serious information, so like, subscribe, and share us. Help us get past the whole YouTube suppression problem that every conservative person out there has, but particularly this channel. We're seeing it consecutively every single video we put out. So again, put us out there on your social media and share us with as many people as you possibly can. Look down below, look at our merchandise, our God and Country t-shirts and the book down there. Again, support the channel. So again, today's guests are really, really important. We've got Natalie Clawson here, and then we've got Michael Clara. Or Clara or Clara?
Clara, it can be either one.
I'm a Spanish speaker,
Me
so
too, so it's Clara.
Clara.
That's what it is in Texas.
That's what it is in Texas.
Yep.
It's interesting last name because you know what it means in Spanish, right?
Yep.
It means clear.
Right.
Are you
To
clear with
clarify.
it? To clarify. So yeah, so that's exactly what you're here to do, right? Just to clarify a lot of this information we're going on today. So we're gonna literally start right at the beginning of what happened. So from our point of view, there wasn't very many delegates that wanted Cox in office at all.
Let me say, we're talking about 2024.
2024 or the convention, right? I was a state delegate. She was a state delegate at the time. My son was a state delegate. My sister was a state delegate. We had a lot of people there. And yeah, what he said during that convention did not hold well with most of us. We were pretty upset. And obviously the only thing that local media put out there was that he got booed. And then they started.
Not what precipitated the booing that we all witnessed. Just the part where he started.
Yeah.
Where we started booing.
And it painted the delegates in a bad light on the mainstream media, but that's not what really happened. So to kind of get down to brass tacks on this, Lyman got 68% of the caucus vote. 68, which is
It's never happened before.
It's never happened. It's unprecedented. He would have gone straight to the general election. He did not. In fact, he didn't even make the ballot, which is crazy. Even with SB 54 being what it is, the fact that he didn't make ballot is absolutely insane. And it upset most of us. And it led to the point where that he was a write-in candidate, and I wrote him in. Most everybody I knew wrote him in. I was telling everybody to write him in, and he received 200,000 plus votes as a write-in candidate, which also has never happened in history.
But as a delegate, all the phone calls I was getting that they're saying he dropped out. I saw it on the news. He dropped out. I got a notice he dropped out. I got a text he dropped out.
So let's start with you, Natalie. Let's go from the beginning. You tell the whole story, because the vast majority of our listeners will have no idea what happened. and they need to know in detail why we have a completely illegitimate, I am saying that word, illegitimate governor in office right now.
Right. It is a big story, and it is very important for the people of Utah because it helps us, it sheds a light on our election system. And I think a lot of us are looking about what's going on in Utah. We've seen that we've had a Republican supermajority for decades, but we keep going further and further to the left, and we can't figure it out. And even the national audience, that people are looking at Utah and they say, we don't understand this. What's going on in Utah? You've got Republicans, but you guys are leading the way with universal mail-in balloting and other things, and transgender issues, other things like that are happening here in this red state. How is this happening? So we got a glimpse into that when we saw what happened in the elections and how much manipulation happened to get Governor Cox back in office again. So like you said, Phil Lyman was a huge crowd favorite from everybody, from the delegates, and they were so excited about him. 68% has never happened before, especially against an incumbent governor. It's huge numbers. And they knew, the delegates going into there knew, because of the GOP constitution, it says that if you get 60% or more, you go straight to the general ballot. So they knew that. So when he got that 68%, people were so excited. We were there for 17 hours that night. It was huge. You guys remember?
After midnight.
All of us were there. Yeah, it was a huge day. So we were really excited about it. Cox was very, very upset. And if you remember his speech, he said over and over, I think it was 7 times, how much hate there is. You hate me because of this. You hate me because I don't hate enough. And he just had a lot of contempt for the delegates there and for this caucus system. And we know that our convention caucus system allows the delegates to actually vet the candidates and talk to them and get to know them. And that's why they voted that way, because they knew who they were voting for. They wanted Phil Lyman. They wanted change in the government. They wanted a new system. They wanted a different leader who was going to respect our personhood and our parenthood and statehood. And so that was a big upset. So it was a big upset to have Phil, or a big win for him to get that number at convention. So
they started some tactics. I don't know if you were probably, I don't know if you were there, but I'm free as a delegate to wander back and forth between things. And going into the vendor section, there was this big upheaval in the middle of the afternoon. They were saying that people from the Phil's campaign were saying vile things to the children in Cox's booth.
Did you see that yourself, or did you?
No, I did not. No, I just heard it in there, and I saw phone calls being made, and it was getting put on media.
I saw it on social media, and I actually talked to one person who was writing really critical things about the convention. She's I guess I won't say who she is, but she's a politician. But I said, do you really want that message coming out? Look at these great people who are here. Look, the vast majority of these people have given up their entire day to be here, a great personal sacrifice, because they believe in the system. And
it's people like that want to get rid of the convention system.
Exactly.
They want to get rid of the caucus system. Mm-hmm. They're trying to purposely badmouth it. They're trying to keep SB 54 strong. We're trying to get rid of it. I mean, not to sway from the point, but we were just making this point a few minutes ago that I went to get reelected as a delegate. She went to get reelected as a delegate, and neither one of us made it.
This year.
This year.
Really?
Just caucus night. Because in my caucus specifically, there was 3 of us that stood up and wanted to be state delegates, and they put us down because last time there was 2 state delegates coming out of my precinct, and now this year for some reason we only have 1. Okay. And 3 of us stood up, plus the chair. And so it was me, the vice chair, and the chair all spoke out against SB 54. Said, no, we got to get rid of this. It's the worst law in the world. And the third guy that stood up, which is actually a good friend of mine, not to slam him, but he was the only guy that said, I think SB 54 is fine. I think we should leave things how it is. Anybody who wants to get on the ballot should be able to get on the ballot. It was complete SB 54. He was the guy that got in.
Oh, no.
Same thing happened.
Really?
One of the things I learned growing up as a kid, and particularly in Scouts, was to be prepared. And particularly when it comes to my feet. You do not want to be out in a situation where your feet are incredibly uncomfortable and makes you absolutely miserable, makes the rest of the day absolutely miserable. So you have to go out there in the right equipment, whether that's hiking in the mountains, whether that's fishing on the stream, it's working out in your garden or out in the yard, or it's going out on the town or to the nearest rodeo in a nice pair of boots. You have to go out prepared so you look good, feel good, and most importantly, it is comfortable. Because again, there's nothing like being miserable walking around all day long. We want to introduce you to 3 different companies that are supporting this channel. We have Durango Boots, which provides the best Western wear and boots that money can buy. So you'll have the look, the feel that you want. There's also Rocky Boots for that great mountain wear, that hiking wear, and just getting out into nature and being prepared for what you're confronting. And then there's Mucky Boots or Muck Boots, which will provide the perfect waterproofing that you need for fishing, hunting, and again, getting out in the yard and working in the mud. These are great companies that supply a great pair of boots for you for any need, for any occasion. So again, go to the link in our description or click on the QR code that's coming up on your screen for any of these great sites, whether it's Western wear, whether it's the outdoor wear and getting up into the hills and the mountains, or whether it's muck wear that you need to be able to work around the garden or go fishing or hunting and not walk around it with wet feet. These are great products at great prices that will keep you perfectly comfortable all day at the same time that you're looking good. So trust these products, whether it's Durango, whether it's Muck Boots, or whether it's Rocky Mountain Boots or Rocky Boots, and go to those sites using the link in our description or QR code that's popping up on your screen. Again, the link in the description or QR code that's popping up on your screen, and support our channel.
Wow. There is a big push throughout the state. I think there were some very organized groups that were trying to take over the caucus system.
They did, and they planned brilliantly. And why didn't conservatives show up to caucus?
Right. I know in one precinct in Orem, they had people came in with 22 absentee ballots from very left-wing people.
16.
16. And they were the same people the people who got voted in were the ones who had the Kamala Harris signs on their yard before. So it's really, they took a straight sweep of every position there. So it is a huge problem. And I think one reason why the delegates didn't show up is because they're frustrated. They sat through that 17-hour convention and they saw how Phil should have been, according to our GOP constitution, and even Spencer Cox's understanding. He knew as a former lieutenant governor that Phil Lyman should have been on the general ballot. And they watched that happen and they sacrificed and they were there, those delegates were, and then they did not see our party stand up for him. The next day after the primary, Rob Axon sat down his statement was, okay, we need to stand together with Spencer Cox. And to me, it felt like this big coup takeover because we had chosen our leader as a Republican Party. And then we had this election, there are so many concerns with the elections, no transparency whatsoever. And so instead of trying to verify the election, verify the signatures or anything like that, the party just went forward with this new leadership. And I think that is the biggest problem in our party right now. That is the reason why the delegates were frustrated.
A lot of people. It really deflated. None of this matters anymore. Why would I spend my whole Saturday doing this? Why would I go to all these meet and greets? Why am I wasting my time if whoever wants to get on the ballot can just get on the ballot with money and signatures?
Exactly, right.
And it's really deflated a lot of people. And the problem with when you deflate the public, the system gets worse because that's exactly what the other side wants to have happen. Because they want to get you out of the picture, you're out of the ring, you're not in the fight anymore. Guess what? We just took control.
Exactly. And so that's why I think it is so important what we are doing right now. So me, Michael, Clara, Phil Lyman, we are still in the fight. We are still trying to expose the problems that we saw because they will never be fixed if we can't talk about them and if we can't identify them and expose them. And if we continue to have the same people in office, these bad actors who are doing this, it will still continue over and over again. And who knows how long they've been doing this with the system. So we have huge
Since
concerns.
2014 when SB 51 went in, right?
Exactly, right. And then the election itself with no transparency and you can't see any of the election returns or anything like that. We've got to put the spotlight on what's happening with our lieutenant governor's office. We need to change things through legislation, but we also need to make sure that the law is being followed, which it wasn't followed this last time in 2024.
Well, you put out a great video, 7 steps to take over an election. Let's go over those one by one. I'll play the clip.
Okay.
And then let's discuss it. And we'll bring Michael in on what he needs to be brought in on.
This is the story of how Utah's 2024 gubernatorial election was stolen in 7 steps. Hi, I'm Natalie Clawson. I ran for lieutenant governor with Phil Lyman, who ran for governor. We challenged the incumbent Spencer Cox
And my preferred pronouns are he, him, and his.
and Deidre Henderson, who, as Lieutenant Governor, is also the Chief Election Officer and oversees all elections in Utah. Step 1, put the wrong candidate on the ballot. Phil was a crowd favorite. He won the GOP convention with an overwhelming 68% of the vote. Cox was booed, fell below the required 40%, and was disqualified, receiving only 32% of the vote.
It's something much more simple. Maybe you just hate that I don't cheat enough.
With over 60%, Phil should have been placed directly on the general ballot in November, but that did not happen. As former Lieutenant Governor, Spencer Cox knew that Phil Lyman should have gone straight to the general ballot in November as the only Republican on the ticket.
If you get 60% of those delegates, you're the nominee, period. End of story. Okay? That's it. That's it. If you get 60%, you're on the ballot in November as a Republican, okay? So if I get 60%, I'm on the ballot. I don't have to have a primary.
However, Cox's running mate, Chief Election Officer Deidre Henderson, ignored the GOP convention results and placed Cox and herself on the ballot and forced Phil Lyman and me into a primary.
So, step 1, let's talk about it. He should not have been on the ballot. I mean, he was, by Utah GOP rules, he was disqualified at under 40%. So how did he get on the ballot?
That's it. Well, his running mate is a chief election officer. I think that helps a little bit there. But it is our understanding and how it's been applied in the past that if you get 60%, then the signature route doesn't apply because then that person goes straight to the general ballot. And the signature route applies only if it's below that.
Or to the primary.
Yeah, to the primary. Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, so we believe, so Phil should have been, he was on the primary because he got over 60%, but he should have gone straight to the general ballot too. So
what was the rationale? How far ahead before the ballot was made did we know he was going to be on there? That he was placing himself on the ballot?
Oh, just the whole time. They just always intended to have him on there.
What was the rationale with?
How did they rationalize that they were allowed to be on the ballot?
They just didn't.
Well, wasn't it the party? I mean, the party has to certify their candidates, right? So shouldn't the party had a role? I didn't look into that at the time or now, but I thought the party had a role in this.
They did, yeah. And
They should have, they certify who the candidates are for the primary.
and that's exactly how it
They
should be.
certified. I know. I mean, I talked to Rob. They certified Lyman. They certified Lyman. He was certified coming out of caucus. And I spoke to Lyman right after the caucus. He says, "No, we're only certifying him. That's it."
No convention, right?
Out of the convention. Out of convention that he was a certified, but then it was forced into a primary, and then that's where the red scheme office.
But I'm saying, I think
And
Accent
then coming out of the
certified
primary,
Cox also.
No, he didn't.
No, he
No,
didn't.
no, the letter just says Phil Lyman is the only one on there. Right,
says
right.
Lyman.
Okay.
And he sent it right after convention, which
Okay.
was what he's supposed to do.
and
So
then coming
that's
out
right.
of primary is where everything went skiwampus, because then Rob Axon just said, "Hey, I'm not going to disrupt the party. We're just going to get behind Cox because that's what I'm supposed to do as a party chair. Nothing I can do about the primary anymore." And so he I mean, I spoke to him in private too, and he was like, he was upset that Cox got through on primary. I mean, Rob Axon's a great guy, but
And he was very close with Phil. They had worked together. a
Yeah,
lot.
they
Phil
are
loves
good friends too.
Phil and Rob Axon are really good friends. So the problem happened between caucus and primary. How did Cox force a primary? Because it shouldn't have happened, you know?
Well, the problem in Utah is that our party is not independent, that we have so much state interference in our party. The state feels that they are the ones who should certify. The state should not have a role in certifying who goes to the primary. That is the Republican candidates. That's our nominee. That's who we want. We should have the process and to be able to do that. And we don't have control over that. Right now, the state they're printing the ballots and they're determining what they want to do with it. So,
But
it's a
what
huge
did they
problem.
say? We're putting him on there because
They just don't answer things.
he has signatures.
Oh, well, yeah,
But-
signatures.
But then when we said yes, but we don't, that doesn't apply now.
Right. So that's been our argument. We went to court over it too. And every case that we've taken to court has been dismissed without us being able to argue our point. So the whole thing's been very frustrating. So that was exactly from the very start. We should not have had to go down this path that we did. But they said because we gathered signatures, so it's this fundamental disagreement from the start that the signatures we believe the signature route should have had no place in there because because Phil got over the 60%. But they said we're going to move on to the signatures.
Overriding everything. The signatures are overriding, becoming more important than the caucus. They're more overbearing. It says, well, if you got the signatures, I mean, you got the support of the people. It doesn't matter what the caucus says, right? That's for the mentality of the public right now, because people, when you go out and ask people, half of them don't even, or even more half of them don't even know what a caucus even is. What's a delegate, right?
Yeah.
Well, if the people voted for it, if they got signatures, that's the law of the land, right? And we mentioned this on a podcast we've done with Jason Preston and a few others, that you're right, that the Utah GOP has been neutered.
Right.
It has no authority anymore. It is a separate entity. It is its own entity. It has nothing to do with the Utah state government. Doesn't have anything to do with any of the legislators, the senators, the governor. Nobody up there can have any say over the Utah GOP because it's its own party, its own entity. But for some reason, because we are a dominant red Republican majority, supermajority, the Republicans control everything, all of a sudden, not only can the legislature control the state, but they're now literally controlling the GOP.
Yeah.
And why do we have a chairman? Why do we have delegates? Why?
That's exactly right. That's exactly what's happening. The state is controlling our GOP, where the GOP should be holding the state accountable, holding the representatives accountable to our platform, saying, if you want an R by your name, you need to follow our platform. You need to be standing up for these issues. And that's not happening right now.
Go ahead and put yourself on the ballot. But you're going to go in as an independent. You're going as somebody else, but you're not getting the Republican convention nominee right there. I've actually spoken just a few during this last session with about 3 or 4 senators. I'm like, I know there's not enough support to get rid of SB 54, but can we at least pass a law that says that the convention candidate's going to have a Republican convention candidate, an RPC, right after his name? So it's not just an R, but RPC after that. And then everybody else who wants to be on the ballot is Republican because of signatures can be out there, but
yeah, so they get an
There's
asterisk or something by it so people know this is the one.
This is the convention candidate.
This is the vetted person.
This is the convention candidate. And they said, well, that's possible. I'm like, and then the second idea I have is if the state wants to have a primary, they want to give this out to public. People, we want to give people the right to vote about it, right? I'm like, great, let's have a primary. Let's have the convention pick the top 2 candidates and then put the top 2 candidates out of convention on a primary ballot and let the people vote for it. But both of them are coming out of the convention.
Yeah.
Right? I'm okay with that either way. But they don't care about the convention. It's all about money and power.
Right. And that's what the signature path allows that to happen. It's all about money and power. People who sign, because we've been talking, Michael's really dug into this whole signature issue and we've seen the problems with it, but people who are signing these packets don't even know what they're signing either. So that's not a great way to vet people. The convention system really is we are so lucky in Utah that we have that. That's how our country was founded, with this representative government that starts right in your neighborhoods. And we are seeing it weakened in front of our faces.
In my own caucus, the discussion came up. They're saying, yeah, but what if we elect you? You don't represent who we want, because they had already solidified that they like Cox, they support Cox. And they said, so we believe there should be signatures because that way we have a say so. And then I said, then why are we here?
Right.
It's just so it's depressing. I wanted to cry. That's the majority
You
of
don't
who
have
was
a
in there.
say-so, though. That's taking your say
And
away.
they said, we know where to vet people. Because I said, well, I talked about the vetting and the process of being a candidate or a delegate and what we attend and how you can go one-on-one, face-to-face, ask questions, and then hold them to it. And they said, we know where to go for information. And I said, where do you go for information? And they said, we know where to go on the internet. We can go on their website.
But do they? It's a matter of billboards. It's a matter of what they
say
see.
whatever you want on your website.
Right. And we know the cost. Do you remember the cost of how much the candidates spend for these?
I think for Cox, it was like almost $250,000 maybe for that.
Just to gather signatures. So it's keeping good people out, because who can spend, that's just to get out the gate and to be able to get those signatures. So it's definitely turns into a money game with the signature round.
And again, not to bash him, but we had Senator Musselman on. We went up to his office and we had this whole argument in his office. He says, well, you're going to have to make this argument without the money. In fact, I'm like, What do you mean make it without the money factor? It is the money factor. That's
Said
the only
anybody
reason.
can collect money.
Anybody can collect money. He says money has no. He says just like you can do money in a primary, you can do money in a caucus system like that. And I'm like, no, you can't.
No.
Not your
When you're in the
average
caucus
neighbor.
system and you're going out to the libraries and schools and whatever you're going to do the meet and greets, you're going to have your folding table. You're going to have your buttons, your stickers, your T-shirts on there. But so's the next guy. He can have a couple $1,000 is all he's raised and have the same buttons, stickers, and T-shirts out there. Mm-hmm. And you could have raised $1 million. But it's the same folding table. It's the same library. The same delegates are going to come and vet you and vet them, and then the delegates are going to talk, and then you're going to have your next meet and greet, and we're going to ask you the same questions over and over again, and we're going to figure it out because how many times we're going to talk to you and talk to each other. We're going to figure it out
Right.
to know who we're going to be voting for. Otherwise, if we're going to a primary, it's all about how much money's on my website, how much I can pay to Google Ads to promote my website, how many TV commercials I can have, how many radio spots I can have, how many signs on the freeway I can have. It becomes a popularity contest. And public get lazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Public get lazy, and they don't vet.
Yeah, and where does that money come from? So when Phil ran
Not in
as
state.
when Phil ran as a convention winner, he had the majority was coming. He had more small dollar donors than that's ever happened before. So he's had all the all the grassroots people were donating to his campaign, and which we were so grateful for them, and they were the ones who were involved in volunteering and helping. But if you want to run and the signature route and you're paying $250,000 for that on top of everything else, you've got to be going to the big lobbyists and getting money from them, and then you're beholden to those people. So those are the people that we are electing because they're the ones who are getting on the ballot, the ones who did the signature path, and then now they're beholden to these special interest groups. And so it creates it's a terrible system.
Well, I want to defend the signature path. so I'm a moderate Republican.
There's no defense of it. I'm sorry.
well, and you'll see as we go, as Natalie will point out some more context on this. But I was a state delegate and voted for Bennett. So I was there at the Salt Palace when Lee won, and then that's what started. What was a flashpoint for the Levitt and that group and everybody to start the signature path, right? So I've maintained my participation in the party, and have always gone to state delegate or county delegate, and never really had to waste a vote as a delegate on a signature gatherer. So I didn't know much about it until 2024. But what you're going to find out is that they couldn't even keep the rules on signature gathering, and that they actually cheated in the signature in collecting the signatures. So one of my goals at one point was I want to kind of restore, some integrity back into the signature gathering process, and we've passed some laws in 2025 and one I think this session, to strengthen the integrity of the signature path.
In what way?
Well,
what did the law say?
So let's bring it up. Let's go down the list. And
Let's
it'll
go
come
down
up.
the list. We'll go to
Right.
point number 2 here. We'll go to point number 2. We'll
That's a good question. We'll get to it.
Well, we'll get to it. Okay, so point number 2.
Step 2, gaslight the public into believing that there was an independent advisor. As chief election officer, Deidre Henderson publicly stated that if there were any concerns that arose in the election, that she would ask the former Lieutenant Governor Greg Bell to step in and handle any concerns. The media further that narrative.
By the way, over the last election, they did have somebody else. They had the former Lieutenant Governor Greg Bell, actually, who stepped in to help oversee that particular part of the election.
However, no one ever heard from Greg Bell during the campaign. The meme, "Where's Greg Bell?" started circulating online. We did a government records request to ask what involvement he had, if any, and the only document that we were provided was the single text message exchange that he had with Deidre Henderson, where he said that he loved being with you. There was no independent advisor, and Deidre Henderson did, in fact, oversee her own election.
It's interesting because the session right before we ran, in that 2024 session, legislative session, Ryan Wilcox had a bill that would say that we want to separate the powers from the Lieutenant Governor's office, and we'd have a Secretary of State. Well, Spencer Cox talked to Ryan and said, don't do that right now. Like, let's hold on to this. Don't work on this bill, because that would have helped solve a lot of these problems. So now we have Utah, which is one of only 3 states that does not have a separate Secretary of State and has the lieutenant governor oversee the own election, which is even further a bigger problem, because the lieutenant governor and the governor run on the same ticket together too. So there is no separation there at all. And she knows it looks bad. And she said, but she admits that it looks like there'd be a bias. And so that's why she would have an independent advisor, and said that right from the start. But so that satiated some people. They thought, okay, we're all right. But it never happened. We've done a couple grama requests, and there's nothing that comes up with any sort of contract that was involved between her and Greg Bell, any communications or anything. So it was definitely overseen by her office. And you've seen how intimately her office was involved in the signature issues too, and the whole thing.
Well, this is completely absurd, because if you're on the ticket, I mean, when I was running for a delegate, I'm up there being the delegate, right? And we all put the little pieces of paper, and we'll write which person we want as a delegate, and then we get somebody, random person out of the audience to come help count, right? Mm-hmm. The first rule is the people who are up there asking to become delegates are not counting. Mm-hmm. Right? And they actually recuse themselves. I'm not going to count because I'm actually going to be up there wanting to be a delegate. And that's kind of the obvious thing. So where is the transparency?
Right.
It should have been so transparent. She should have been obnoxiously transparent to make sure that the public knew that I'm not doing anything nefarious. I'm not persuading this anyway. I'm not putting my finger on the scale. Nothing is happening. So I'm going to be overtly transparent.
Right. Well, I think the conflict of interest extended to grama requests. Mm-hmm. That if I'm doing grama requests to view Governor Cox's election records, then Bell should have made the decision, because you do a grama request, it gets denied, then you appeal it to the lieutenant governor. And she has a designee in her office that responds, but they should have kicked those over to Greg Bell.
Right.
But none of that happened.
Was Greg Bell even involved? Did he even step foot in any office to even do anything?
Not that we...
No, we can't do... I mean, we can see like a single text message, but there's no involvement at all.
No contract, no communications.
Right. Right. But you're right. I mean, she should have been over the top, more transparent. And this whole concern is even more amplified because of how they responded to it. So not only pretending that there was an outside advisor, which didn't happen, but then to close down everything that we asked for. I think everything I asked for has been denied. The questions I asked were not answered. Like there has been no transparency. And it is unprecedented, the amount of the lack of transparency this election compared to any other elections.
So it's not only that she's not absolutely overtly transparent. She's nothing.
Denying.
It's nothing is coming out.
Right.
Absolutely nothing. Right. Everything's being denied. Everything's being shut down. Everything's being close-pocketed. Nothing is coming out. So when you're that quiet and you're that hush-hush, it is obvious that something is nefarious is going on in the background. It is so obvious, and nobody's doing anything about it. When you have a judge that has even the least little bit of conflict of interest, guess what? The judge recuses themselves from that court hearing, right? When you have a senator, a congressman that might be involved in something, boom, they recuse themselves. We just had this thing go all over the internet with Stuart Adams, because he put forward a bill that would have helped his niece,
right,
even though he did not make it retroactive, so it did help his niece, it just still would have done that. And I would have understood that would have really caused him a lot of problem if that bill would have been retroactive, but it wasn't, so good on him.
It was a granddaughter.
Yeah, a granddaughter, yeah. But even then, that hit the news everywhere. It was all over the place. People were questioning him, and yet here, it's all shut down. Right. Nobody's even questioning. Even the questions themselves are being shut down, to where it's so bad that now you and Lyman and all of us who are like trying to point this out, we are the crazy kooks, we're the conspiracy theorists, and they're just trying to defame us in that way to shut down even the narrative around it, and let alone any real information coming out.
And I think people can see that now. And so I think that they see beyond this rhetoric, like everything was fine, because they've seen how much pushback there has been. And because everything's been denied. We've never seen his signature packets. We've seen other candidates. They've been able to show those.
That's public information.
It should be. Yes, it is public.
So you need to shut that down, because you have Deidre who's saying, like, people, I cannot in good conscience disclose this. People's names and phone numbers are on there. They're already on there.
Right. Oh, and that's a voter
And
roll,
only to a
right.
delegate. I mean, we're not asking this to go to the public.
Right. And we were asked, with the legislature specifically said if names are private, candidates can see them. And we fought that in court on the voter roll, on the voter list. And this was not even a voter list. We were asking for a petition, which have you ever signed a petition and thought no one would see this? No one would see this again. You signed a petition. You've got 10 names on the single sheet of paper with some random kid who's at your door. Like there's no expectation. This is not a government employee who's at your house.
Because the petitions we just signed to repeal SB 54, those were made public.
They're published on her
they
webpage.
showed up at my doorstep like every other day.
Right.
I could see them on my doorbell while I was at work to trick me into taking my name off.
Exactly. Right. Yes. So the other side knows, so they can contact you. And she publishes, the lieutenant governor publishes all of those names on her webpage.
But let me clarify. I'm defending her.
Well, before you clarify, let's let the public know who you are.
That's a good
Let's
point.
give you some.
What are you
Let's
doing
give you
here?
some legitimacy and some authority here. So,
All right.
spend 3 minutes of telling the public who you are and why you're here and why you're
You do it, Natalie. I like to explain how I got involved.
Michael's amazing.
Since
Michael's
she's the one
been
that-
Michael's been a superhero to this whole thing, but he jumped in. He has he's a former police investigator. So he knows when, you see some smoke, there's fire there, you start asking more questions. And he was asked to, you can jump in anytime. I've been talking the whole time, but
I like to hear you say.
okay. He was asked by a delegate down in Washington County to help look at a race involving a school board race. And he's done a lot of grama requests through his time because he always seems to be around fighting corruption and discovering he was a former mayor, a former school board member, Salt Lake, and then police officer. So he's got some great experience and he's really good at these grama requests. And so he was helping with this race down in Washington County. And when he did that, it led him to looking towards to Senator Don Ibsen's packets, and because he was comparing some different packets. And when he did that, at first they said, sure, come on in, you can come look at them. And then they responded and they said, oh, it's actually under a criminal investigation, so we're not going to let you look at these. And when he noticed that, then we got in contact. Somehow people connected us together and said, the same company that Don Ibsen used that's under a criminal investigation is the same one that Spencer Cox used. And so there may be concerns with Cox's packets. And so then we started working together and Michael did the grama request.
I got to interject here.
Now jump in. Yeah.
And when I'm told that there's a connection, between, because of the same company, which I could see that, but I didn't believe.
Well, describe what kind of company this is. You're just saying
it's called
company.
Gathering Inc. is the name of the company, and the owners are Stokes and Lethem Tanner, and so they're gathering. You can hire.
They're
them
a signature
to
gathering company.
Yeah, here out of Utah. And so they,
People probably don't even realize that there's an actual signature gather. You can hire a company to
there's
gather
several.
signatures
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, and then they also are like lobbyists. These people
Right.
have their
There's
hands in a lot of things.
When you're talking signature gather, you're not talking just volunteers going out there collecting signatures. No, you can just pay somebody to go out and do it for
they
you.
hire people, yeah.
Right.
And so I was, dubious that there was even a connection or that there could be a concern. And then she called me because some people told me about it. I said, well, I don't think there's a connection between Governor Cox. And then when she explained why she thinks there is, that the Lyman campaign was looking into it, I didn't believe her, but I helped her because she's a nice lady. And so I helped her with a couple more grama requests. And then is this one of your points? Or maybe we should stop here and then
No, you can
we'll
go
get to
ahead
the
because
point.
this explains your background.
okay.
And they need to know your
Yeah,
background.
and then I got involved because when I'm doing a grammar, in the process of doing this, we're like in June.
No, June. This is before the primary stuff.
June of 2024, that I get told about this investigation, that there is an investigation into Governor Cox's signature packets because an investigator from the Attorney General's office went to these people's homes, and one of the people contacted me. So I visit with them. I get a business card with the case number on it. AG 24170 was the case number, and it's a business card from the Attorney General investigator. So I do a grama request for that investigation. My motive in doing the grama request was because Phil Lyman, they had just filed a case in court to seek Governor Cox's signature packets. It was an appeal to 3rd District Court to see the package. And I thought, oh, well, I'll do a grama request. I'm going to get a letter back because I've done this before. And they'll just say there's a criminal investigation going on. We're not giving you the packet, or we're not giving you the investigation, which is normal. So my intent was to get the letter, give it to her so they could use it in court. Instead, I get a response back, there is no records. Then that's from the records officer from the Attorney General's office. So then I do an appeal, and Daniel Burton, who is he's the chief deputy now for the Attorney General. I don't know what his role was then, but he says we've researched it. There is no record.
So they're not denying there was a case. They're just saying there's no records.
They're saying there's no case exists.
We can't.
Thus, no investigation exists. And when I appealed it to Daniel Burton, I said, I got the case number. Here it is. And I sent him a picture of the business card with it says Attorney General. It says the name of the investigator, everything. And he says, there's nothing there. And I remember calling her and I said, oh, it's no big deal because now I'm going to file. I just filed it with the State Records Committee, and they're cooked because I've been to the State Records Committee and they're fair. And they'll look at this and, and probably rule in my favor. Mm-hmm. So the executive secretary from the Records Committee sends me a letter back saying, we're not scheduling this for a hearing. They told you there is no records and you don't have any evidence that there is. And I flew off the handle and I called her and I just said, holy smoke, something's going on. And that's just my law enforcement, background telling me, okay, if you're hiding something, now I know something's wrong. And I don't think I ever apologized to her, but, to other people, I said, man, I owe her an apology. I said, because I thought, the conspiracy theorists and the gaslighting and stuff that was going on, and I'm more of an evidence-based, logical, deduction type guy. But this was enough for me to say, okay, something is definitely wrong here.
Because you knew the witnesses, the case number, the investigator,
right.
You talked with them, like you couldn't have had more evidence at the time to question this. And,
so that's my introduction.
And then you started making videos about it, which was incredible. Right. So if people haven't seen it, he's done 16 videos. They're on YouTube. And it's just going over the investigation, how he asked different questions, what he's found through numerous grama requests, which is just incredible, the amount of information he's dug up.
Well, let me say, I did the first video. It was called Governor Spencer Cox Cover-Up Series or something like Signature Cover-Up Series. And my interest in this was, I'm going to stay involved because I spend a lot of time on this. I'm only going to stay involved as long as people are interested because I know enough about government. There could be things wrong, but I'm not going to spend my life, exposing it if nobody cares, if nobody's going to take action on it. So I was always looking for an exit ramp the last 2 years to be done with this. But, to their credit as candidates, they stayed involved. The people that follow them stayed involved. So I stayed involved and committed, to keep doing this and to keep looking at things. So that's where, we were at, and 2 years later, I'm still involved.
Yeah. And to jump ahead a little bit, you had a whistleblower who ended up giving you the...
Wait, you're going too far.
Okay.
We'll get to this.
There's good stuff coming up.
It'll come up in your steps.
Where were you a police officer?
In Texas. I was in Austin and then Travis County. I was a park ranger for a while, a paramedic and a cop.
An Austin City police officer?
In Austin, Texas, yep.
Yeah. And when did you come up to Utah?
Probably 30 years ago.
Wow.
And where were you mayor?
In Texas. Like I was in probably early 30s. Probably 29. And it was a town like Tooele. It was small.
And he's ready for school board right now.
Yeah. State school board.
State school
board.
Forgot
about that. Yeah.
You forgot that you're running for
state school board.
He's fighting corruption
I'm
full
a Republican in the heart of the Democrat area running for state school board. So
there you go.
It's a tough race.
So now that everybody knows who you are, go ahead and...
I think we had stopped at Deidre Henderson, and I just wanted to point out that the state law is that all these like initiative petitions can be published, but for candidates, they're not published. And that's just the state law, right? And we've tried, I think Lisa Shepard up in your area ran a couple bills like 2 years in a row to try to change that. where we could publish the names of people that signed candidate petitions, but it didn't make it through.
Yeah, Lisa Shepard and I are good friends because we grew up together.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
She's, we were literally next door neighbors, and I grew up with her kids and everything like that, so I know Lisa really, really well.
If it's not able to be released, or the signature is not able to be released to the public, like you were saying, that should be released to the opposing counsel or opposing candidate. But at minimum, if you take something to court, it should be discoverable in court, and a judge can easily put a do not release this to the public mandate on it, because judges can do that, and it can still be used in a court of law. And yet,
Nothing has happened. We've never seen anything. And there's no explanation why her office just a couple of days earlier made an appointment and let a candidate, let a delegate come in and look at full signature packets for other candidates. Everyone who asked that I'm aware of were able to seek packets, and it never changed. It didn't change until we asked for Spencer Cox's. And then all of a sudden, oh no, state law doesn't allow us to do this. And everybody was doing it. And there is no state law that doesn't, just a couple of weeks earlier, May.
So
of
you have
20
you
and we
have
even have packets.
evidence of
we have copies of other packets from other. It's just Spencer Cox's that can't.
But you see, timeline wise, like what's going on in July of 2024, they're in court trying to see the Cox packets. Then I go to court because I'm saying you have that investigation. I know you do. So now I'm going to take it to court. So I do a pro se filing, take it to court. And then for my case, her case, their case gets denied, gets dismissed in December of 2024. This is to see the packets. In the meantime, my case is going through to see the investigation because I know it exists. My case gets dismissed in 2025 because I don't have any more evidence other than the business card. And based on what's understand, I'm fighting the Attorney General's office, and they're maintaining and doubling down to get the case dismissed that it does not exist. They give an affidavit, and the twist to this is Lonnie Pearson is the records officer for the Attorney General's office. In 2025, probably March of 2025, when a new law gets passed, they do away with the records committee for grama, and they appoint a director, and the governor appoints Lonnie Pearson, who's the records officer for the AG. He's now the records officer. He's the one you go to when you appeal records now.
So he's the one that denied the documents to us and denied them to you, to the criminal investigation, and now he's the one who
as the AG guy. And so now he's the administrative law judge for appeals, but we'll get back to that.
And it was Cox's brother-in-law who passed the law to do that.
To do away with the records committee and only make it one administrative law judge. It happens to be the guy from the Attorney General's office who starts saying that there is no investigation. So keep this in mind. Now we're in 2025. In the fall of 2025, my case gets dismissed. And then probably 2 weeks later, a whistleblower gives me that case, the case. 200 pages I get in the mail I get the offense case. It's HE 24170, and it's 200 pages, and it has a post-it note that says, from a whistleblower that's on your side. And I'm like, wow. So I publish it. I put it on X, and I say I have this offense report, and then an attorney gets a hold of me. He says, you can take that to court. You can, and it's called a Rule 60B motion, that when a case gets dismissed, if you get new evidence within 90 days, you can go to a judge and have it reopened. And so we did that. Mm-hmm. So we got a gal to represent me because I couldn't do that on my own. And so so now we're into January of 2026. He files it, in I think November, December, saying we have evidence, and he's asking the judge for two things. One is open my case again, because we know now that it exists. And two, it's not sanctions, but it was to declare that the Attorney General's office committed
perjury,
committed fraud on the court by doing this. And so then we're like, just recently, right? Where are we at now? January, February. So we're in 2026, and the judge ruled in our favor. And she doesn't want to say that their fraud was committed, but she rules in our favor and opens up the case. And then we've gone through one phase of discovery where they've given us a number of documents, and they call it meet and confer. It's just my attorney and me meeting with the AG's office, and we've agreed to certain documents, and we're at the point now where they don't think they need to give us any more, so we'll go back to court and ask the judge to compel them to give us the other things that we have on our list that we feel I'm entitled to.
This is good stuff.
It is. It's like it's ongoing. There's
Right.
and she did find in January that there was an investigation that started in April 2024 because it was clear from the document. So
Right.
it was before we asked. It was before right when they were trying to certify the election, saying that he had enough signatures or verify that he had enough signatures. They knew that there was an investigation ongoing, but didn't disclose that to the public. Didn't disclose it to me
Didn't
when I
disclose it to a judge.
yeah, and to the judge, right? And or the candidate when I asked specifically.
People are
I asked
not probably
specifically about it.
realizing how serious that is.
It is serious.
You have a government officials openly lying and concealing evidence in an open courtroom.
Right. That affected
That is
an election.
massive. That is jail time for
It should be.
anybody that did that. That is serious jail time.
Right.
Not just repercussions or fines or anything like that. I mean, that's criminal offenses. You can go to criminal court for what they just did. And people are, it's not going to be that serious. No, it's that serious.
Yeah.
Right.
They had an actual document. You have what was on that document, by the way? That
Well, it explains the investigation. There's several now that we find out. But that was one of them. And what happened was the investigation starts in April into forged signatures on Governor Cox's signature packets. And
who was investigating it?
it was the Attorney General's office. And this goes back to kind of the conversation we were having before the podcast about the role of the clerk, Davis County clerk, versus the role of the lieutenant governor. One of the things, but keep in mind when I'm explaining this, these are the things that they didn't want Lyman people and Natalie to know, because remember, they're in court. They're in court in July of 2024. They're in court telling the judge, this is the Attorney General's office, telling the judge there's nothing wrong with Governor Cox's signature packets. The clerk has verified all of them. It's gone through this rigorous statutory process. And the last thing they wanted to do was to admit that there's an investigation going on. Because had they done that, there's a possibility that the judge would have ruled in their favor and let them see the package. And then they would have seen, that's another whole thing. But coming back to this, what we find in the offense report, the investigation actually started in April of 2024. The clerk, McKenzie, what he does is he sees forged signatures. He just pulls the packets out of the whole process, which is illegal. He doesn't record them that they're forged signatures. He pulls them all out and gives them to the lieutenant governor, which is the candidate. And so there's like 20 packets that have to do with Governor Cox. They pull those out, and now the lieutenant governor people are verifying the signatures. They go through and look and
so they're
see
verifying
their own
signatures.
packets. Right. Their own
That isn't a
packets.
conflict
Right.
of interest.
And they testified that they didn't do that, right?
Oh, yeah.
In
And
front of the
like that's
legislature.
another thing. And there's a law that passed in 2024 that says if you lie to the legislature or committee, you don't have to be under oath. Just if you lie, it's a Class A misdemeanor. And I have McKenzie and the state director, Callie, lying. I mean, we have them on video. It's in part of the public record
They
where they
lied in
lie
an open
to the
courtroom.
legislature. Right. That's the Attorney General.
How do you?
Right.
How did he not be brought up on charges for that? You knew that there was an investigation. You've got evidence of it. There's 200 pages
Right.
of it. It explains
Yeah.
that has been going on since
Right.
April of last
and
year.
they kept it from these guys that were in court.
So you're saying you had
That's
have eyes on the
obstruction.
document that
we
proves
published
that Mackenzie, he saw it and passed it on.
So these are what we can call them flag packets that they end up taking out of Cox's whole process, right?
So they are. So not all the packets were pulled. Just these ones that
from
you
this
can
one-
tell
from one
are.
signature gatherer. What he should have done is recorded them as forged, and then he could have given them he should have given them to the Attorney General, but he gives them to the Lieutenant Governor. They then verify all the signatures, determine they're all forged except I think like 80 of them are valid, right?
But it was like 900 that About 900.
Well, 900 signatures total. And this guy did forge. There's no question that the suspect in this, he did forge the signatures. But at the first week or two that he did it, he actually went and got signatures. And so there are valid signatures in there. But now you have, instead of and like she said, they testify in May of 2025 to Senator McKay's committee on oversight and said, because we were there, we gave a presentation,
Right.
and they're sitting there saying, but we didn't know it at the time, because remember, we don't
You're
have
talking
the
Dan
report.
McKay's
Right,
oversight.
it was Senator McKay's committee, and they said that these signatures that we pulled, McKenzie says, who's the clerk, we verified all those signatures. Because I said that they didn't. I was speculating at the time because I didn't know, and he just said that what I said was false. He said, what Michael just told you was false. He goes, my office verified all the signatures. And then, months later, we get the offense report that shows, and again, now these are called flag signatures, but what they end up doing is using those in the audits. They use them in the audits to say, well, Governor Cox had 600 additional signatures that we never counted. Which I chased that down too.
Show them to me. Where?
Right. And I've done
tried.
grammar requests, and I only got, I asked for the cover sheets. I only get half of them because I know, from reading the report and everything, the other half were these signatures that they pulled and claimed that they didn't use, but they did, and they're verified by the lieutenant governor.
How do they flag that they are fraudulent? Is it the voter registration number?
No,
Doesn't
they can
match
just
up?
see when you're looking at the petition, you can see the same person signed them.
So it's
So
the
same
same
signature.
handwriting.
Right. But as we'll talk about later, Cox has packets like that too. There are signatures that were verified by McKenzie as the police this offense report talks about that. It says that what they're doing is they go through. Well, there's another offense report. I hate
This
jumping
is the
around on this.
200 pages. That
Right.
was
This is the
just-
200-page offense report. It actually refers to another offense report, and we get it through discovery 2 months ago, and it's AG 24320. And what it talks about, there's this meeting that the investigators and the Attorney General investigators, while they're investigating, remember that whole Ibsen thing, Senator Ibsen stuff, that only comes to their attention because the county clerk in Washington County caught the forgeries, and their district attorney is doing the investigation. It gets kicked over to the Attorney General. While these investigators are looking at it, they realize these guys, these 4 suspects that forged for Ibsen, also forged for Cox. So
They admitted it, right? Didn't they tell the investigators
they said, well, we did, we forged signatures for Cox. So the AG investigator then contacts, the lieutenant governor's office, and they have this meeting, and they figure out, wait, these are forged signatures also. This is like in August of 2024. These investigators then say, wait a second, if these signatures are forged, and now they've done a comparison, and they said, this is the problem. The Washington County clerk says that these signatures are forged, and we agree with him. We get these same names, and we go look at them on the Cox packet, and they're not forged. They are forged, but the clerk in Davis County says these are verified, legitimate signatures. So they call in 5 other agents, and they start contacting anybody on from these signature gatherers. Well, they were only looking at one signature gatherer at the time. They contact everybody that Davis County says were legitimate signatures, and they find out they were forged. And so now they have this meeting, and it's in the report where they say, maybe you better not send out the ballots.
And that's around, that's like September
In
3rd.
August. Yeah. It was the end of
September.
August and
Okay.
September, and the ballots are
2024.
going to get mailed out. These
Well,
are
who's saying that they shouldn't?
the investigators for the Attorney General are meeting with the Lieutenant Governor's people and the attorney. They have an attorney named Scott Cheney, and the investigators are saying, maybe you need to not send out the ballots because we've looked at these are forged. And Cheney tells them absolutely not. That federal law, we have to send those out.
The ballots.
Yeah, and we're not, and remember, I'm reading
If
the report.
they didn't, they won't get elected themselves. They're taking themselves off the ballot if they don't send it out.
Yeah.
And so I'm reading a report in the report, she says, I made an audio of the meeting. So I just, back in January, did a grama request for that audio. And we're 50 something days later, they haven't given it to us yet. You know, so there's an audio of this meeting where they knew in the fall that Cox didn't have the signatures, and the investigators thought
There's
maybe
actual
we should stop.
Right.
audio.
And they asked, were there any extra ones too,
Yeah,
right?
there's-
Is that part of that conversation? They said, are there extra ones? Because they realized like he's short. And then you went down a big rabbit hole or something to try to get the extra signatures. And
Yeah,
those
yeah.
have been hiding. We don't even think there are any, or if
Right.
there's not enough to make up for, definitely not enough to make up for the shortfall.
So these 4 alleged signature gatherers, are they agents of that company, or are they
Yeah, they
volunteers?
work for the company, for Gathering Inc. There have
And
been
you
others.
can't subpoena that company's records?
Well, that's what we're doing right now through Discovery. We're not subpoena, but we're trying to see how far we can go with this discovery. I mean, as you know now, we know enough to know what happened. It's just a matter of knowing more, because my motivation at this point is we've passed laws already to fix a lot of this stuff. It's going to be a lot harder to cheat, even with the laws we passed. There's a couple we still need to pass.
Well, we just need to get rid of the law, then no one can cheat, right?
That's true. But that goes back to what I said earlier, that I'm actually, I want integrity into the signature gathering process. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, I'm not one to say, let's reject it, because I've invested a lot of time in improving it and bringing integrity to the signature gathering process. But in the meantime, because I started focusing in on that, like she just said, when there's an audit that comes out in September 2024 by John Dougal, he says, well, the Governor Cox was short 300, statistically speaking, but he had 391 valid signatures that were spares. And we know that because we went and looked at the spares and we validated those and found out there were 391 that were valid. So I did a grama request for that. I go, well, I want to see those. If you're telling me that, because it makes sense, right? If you're telling me that statistically he's short 300, but he had 391 spares, we're done. And I was really hoping we would be done. And I would tell them, you know what, you guys don't have a legitimate concern anymore, because he was short. You were right. But his spare signatures that they didn't count, but they were turned in on time. Let's look at them. And they can never produce those. They can only produce like half of those, and they can't tell me if those are valid, how many of those are valid or not. So that even to this day, you know, we still don't know. And then, because again, remember these flag packets I told you about, they threw out, well, they used those. And to what extent they used them, we don't know.
So most candidates submit thousands of extra signatures, and he only had 300, if that. And we know that he was so short because they were
That's a
verifying.
recount.
Yeah, they were verifying fraudulent
It
signatures.
should be
and
an
saying they're
automatic
good.
recount when,
Right.
when you're that tight, right?
Right. But they won't even let us look at those signatures. And I had asked early on, I said, this is before the primary, are there any extra ones? Because we knew the numbers, the margins got to be really small. And they came back and they said, there's 592 extra. So we were going after that for a while. And then Michael started digging into it, wanting to see those 592. And they said, that was just an estimate. And then
I still
they were all over the
understand
place.
why we can't have a subpoena all that, have the judge.
Well, because law enforcement has to do that. And so if the Attorney General is a law enforcement for the state, they have no
Well,
incentive.
obviously conflict of interest, and the judge would know
Oh,
that.
it's
The
beyond
judge,
that. They're part of the cover-up.
the judge isn't an idiot. And
Right.
He just says, just send in local law enforcement, send in the sheriff's office, the Salt Lake Sheriff's Office, to say, we get these records, we're taking them down the courtroom. The judge is going to sequester them, make sure that they don't get public, but both sides get to look at them.
That should be how it is.
But let me tell you, so in May of 2025, when we do a presentation to the legislature,
Dan McKay.
then Lynn Zierers from ABC4 says, oh, Michael, some resident, and she knows me. She goes, some citizen shows up with Natalie Clawson, and they just start throwing around all these accusations with no evidence whatsoever. And it's like, we did a PowerPoint presentation. We submitted things in advance. She knows there's evidence, but this is what the media, covers.
He wants
is
discussion.
there, even to this day, they talk about Lyman being illegitimate because of all his conspiracy theories about election fraud. And I'll challenge him on X, or, I'll send him a note, say, well, let's talk about that. I'm not that I'm defending Lyman. I'm defending the part there was fraud. There was fraud. So you can't say that about him, because he was right. He ends up being right. And I wasn't trying to prove him right. I was actually trying to prove him wrong. And I end up, converted.
One of the things I learned growing up as a kid, and particularly in Scouts, was to be prepared. And particularly when it comes to my feet. You do not want to be out in a situation where your feet are incredibly uncomfortable and makes you absolutely miserable, makes the rest of the day absolutely miserable. So you have to go out there in the right equipment, whether that's hiking in the mountains, whether that's fishing on the stream, it's working out in your garden or out in the yard, or it's going out on the town or to the nearest rodeo in a nice pair of boots. You have to go out prepared so you look good, feel good, and most importantly, it is comfortable. Because again, there's nothing like being miserable walking around all day long. We want to introduce you to 3 different companies that are supporting this channel. We have Durango Boots, which provides the best Western wear and boots that money can buy. So you'll have the look, the feel that you want. There's also Rocky Boots for that great mountain wear, that hiking wear, and just getting out into nature and being prepared for what you're confronting. And then there's Mucky Boots, or Muck Boots, which will provide the perfect waterproofing that you need for fishing, hunting, and again, getting out in the yard and working in the mud. These are great companies that supply a great pair of boots for you for any need, for any occasion. So again, go to the link in our description or click on the QR code that's coming up on your screen for any of these great sites, whether it's Western wear, whether it's the outdoor wear and getting up into the hills and the mountains, or whether it's muck wear that you need to be able to work around the garden or go fishing or hunting and not walk around with wet feet. These are great products at great prices that will keep you perfectly comfortable all day at the same time that you're looking good. So trust these products, whether it's Durango, whether it's Muck Boots, or whether it's Rocky Mountain Boots or Rocky Boots, and go to those sites using the link in our description or QR code that's popping up on your screen. Again, the link in the description or QR code that's popping up on your screen, and support our channel.
So what is the estimate of signatures that they were short by your calculations?
Okay, so let me tell you. So they do an audit on September 3rd. They release it. That's from the state auditor. Then what happens is on October 15th, 2024, the legislative auditor releases their audit, and they think that on average he's probably 600, right under 700 short, statistically speaking, based on what they've looked at. Then what happens?
And remember the timeline, that's before the general election. And it came from the legislative auditor. So Phil and I behind the scenes had conversations with so many of the representatives, and we said, okay, this is your audit. Yep. What are you gonna do about it? You found, he's short. He doesn't have the extra signatures. We've been questioning this the entire time. What will you do? And the response was, with this is a really hard situation here. We can see that this is really hard. And they were.
Because it wouldn't have gone to the Senate.
They weren't willing to do anything about it.
There's too many because it would have put a bad light on SB 54. It would have put a bad light on everything. The senators would have been seen in a bad light. Not badmouth Stuart Adams, but he's a proponent of SB 54 and all this kind of stuff. That it would have put a bad light on everybody, and they were just like,
we were hoping this would just go away.
This is not worth it. Governor Cox is not a bad man. He's doing good by us. Let's just make this go away.
Well, and I actually had someone say, I know who counts our votes too. So if they have, if they're going to go and push back against Deidre, they know who's counting the votes in the election that they're running in 2 more weeks. So there's all these conflicts. And as we were talking about conflicts too,
wait. Let me go to Audit 3.
Okay, do that. Yeah. Well, I just want to say that Deidre ran his AG's Derek Brown's campaign. She was the finance committee chair over in his campaign. So when we talk about Derek Brown, thank you. So there is a lot of conflicts between the LG and the AG.
I interviewed him many times as a candidate.
Right. Okay.
Let me tell you this about audit number 3, because what happens is when the investigators realize that the Ipsen and there's 4 of them, but they're only talking about one. that signatures on the Cox list are also invalid. They know this because they called people. They would send them a text message or an email and say, "Is this your signature?" And they would say no. And that.
Could I add one thing? Just the circulators are usually they're gathering with multiple packets, so they're gathering for Cox and for Ipsen at the same time, and so that's why it makes sense that if you have problems, if there's problems in the Ipsen's packet, you should look at Cox packet, because if they forge for Ipsen and they're holding Cox's at the same time, there's a good chance that they're forging across the board for all of the candidates.
And she has an email from June 17, 2024, where she asked Callie that.
Yeah,
She
the
goes,
Lieutenant
"Did you
Governor's
compare
office.
these signatures? We know that
And explain who Hallie is.
He's the director of elections.
The director of election works for the lieutenant governor.
Her right-hand man, right?
Yeah.
Over this.
And he's over elections. So what happens is the investigators realize this is pretty serious. So they make the determination. Remember this audit that I told you about in September came from the state auditor? That was at the behest of the lieutenant governor. So the lieutenant governor asked the state auditor, do this audit, and he's the one that says, well, there's 300 statistically short, 391 spare signatures, and then you have the legislative auditor comes up with even higher numbers that he's wrong. Well, now the attorney general asked the state auditor to do a third audit that we knew nothing about. They spend like $340,000 that we know of because we have the invoices for it. And they hire 2 CPA firms.
And the timeline, this is a fall of 2024 before the general election.
And nobody knows about it.
Yeah, they keep it quiet.
Nobody knows. And these 16 CPAs look at every single signature. They're not doing any statistical looking at this anymore. And they look at every single signature and determine that Cox is 1,000 plus signatures short. And these are signatures that the Davis County clerk said were valid, and these CPAs are saying they're not valid. And my theory is that they did that in the event that they won their case in court, because if they won their case and the judge said they can look at the signature package, they wouldn't have even had to compare signatures to the VISTA program, the statewide database. They could have just seen that these were forged, because they were all the same person.
Because you could see that on Ipsen's.
Yeah.
You could see the straight lines were
Right, you
pages.
could just see, and the audit said that. The third audit said that they were, you could just see the forgeries all on the same page. We don't find out about that till June of 2025.
You have a copy of that third audit.
Yeah.
You have an actual copy of that.
Yeah, and we don't find out that it's Tina Cannon, the new state auditor, that discloses in a hearing with what is Winter. It was Senator
Winterton.
Yeah, his I forget what committee it was, but she discloses this third audit and about what had happened.
And she didn't conduct it. It was done under John Dougal.
Right.
And then it was just quietly
Dougal's the one that
kept
hid it.
quiet. He didn't want it out.
Well, now the
And then-
governor's trying to get rid of her.
Exactly. She's on the hot seat.
And where does Dougal
Exactly.
work?
Yes, that was in the Attorney General's office. Everyone kind of shifted up since we were
Dougal's like
involved
the
with them.
chief of staff or something like that for the attorney general.
Right. And then Tina revealed also in that audit that there were full packets of signatures that were gathered for one candidate that were given credit to another candidate. So it's sloppy at best.
And
but
that things were taken out of Vista.
yes.
That the clerk had put signature, had recorded in the state program, like it says forge or not. Somebody in the lieutenant governor's office took them out of the database. So you can't even look at the stuff that we have in place, to look at the integrity. They've just, and we don't even know the details yet to a lot of that.
Right.
Well, there's too much evidence at this point. When
Right.
they're not letting you look at the signatures, that needs to be open court.
Right.
Going back, you've got an actual recording that exists
Well, we
somewhere.
haven't seen it yet.
Actual recording that exists somewhere of a meeting saying that, no, we need to poll these ballots.
Yep.
We've requested part of discovery, so it should be given to us, but we'll see if they produce it.
Well, that was just a pure grama request.
Oh,
I can wait for discovery.
yeah.
So we'll get it one way or the other.
As long as they haven't destroyed evidence, right?
Right. And Deidre just recently said, and the law says that you hold on to it for 22 months. And I think the intent was that in case there's questions, you can look at it in the 22 months. But the way she's interpreting it is you seal this up for 22 months and then you can destroy it. So it's backwards.
They're just trying to get rid of it because they know it's jail time.
Right. And a cover-up is a big deal. We've seen like with Watergate, that was the big part. The big problem with Watergate was the cover-up. And that's what we're seeing here is the cover-up is so bad here and so obvious. and that's what we can see. And then we can't even, and what we know from underneath is so dirty too. I mean, there's multiple layers, but we're still trying to dig underneath and see what we can find out about the signature problems and the actual election and other things. But so we haven't ever seen the nominating petitions, and we went back, we had a hearing on Monday asking for it again, going through the process. And the code is very clear. It says in there, so one, we talked about how their petitions, they should be public. And then we talked about, but the lieutenant governor is trying to apply the rules for a voter registration and saying that we have private and withheld voters on our voter rolls. Well, these are not voter rolls. But even if you do go down that line of thinking, it does say a private signatures, if someone marks a box they want their name to be private, it says both on the registration form itself and in state code, it says, I understand my information will be available to government workers, candidates, and political parties. It says candidates in there. So we should have the right to view it. The legislature was clear. They wanted candidates to be able to see these private names. And we asked for it through
For this
email.
very reason.
For this very reason, exactly. And it was ignored in every one of our court cases. When we argued that point, they used that statute to deny us and omitted the sentence that said we are the ones who should see it. It was never addressed in court. And then when we had our hearing on Monday, I brought it up 3 times and they never responded to it. Never. I said, why can't we get it? Because it says candidates. We should be able to see all the private names at a minimum.
What did the judge say?
He says, I'm going to have
Well, it's Lonnie Pearson.
He's the same one that denied it.
He's the AG guy. That's
Is
now the
your
hearing
judge
officer.
in your case?
Well, he's an administrative law judge.
Because he was
for the
promoted.
grama
Oh, so this
appeal
is
here.
not an actual courtroom.
Well, they
judge.
started over. So they started the process over again.
You have to go through that process before you take it to court. So we took it as high as you can through the grama process on Monday, and now we can appeal it to the 3rd District Court. But when we did try it through the 3rd District Court last time, they ruled against us. Like Michael said,
That's
they
when it
said,
got dismissed in December of 2020.
And you guys can't take this to
And-
federal court?
well, and let me just say, they ruled against us because they said it was a rigorous process that was done fairly because they didn't disclose the investigation was not disclosed in it. The judge also said this was transparent because there were 29 county clerks who were involved in the process. No, there wasn't. There was only one. I mean, that was central to our whole claim. He says that, and then he said the people who signed the petition specifically asked for their names to be private on a petition. Like, that didn't happen either. Like, and that was his finding is that we will dismiss it because there's too much evidence showing it was a transparent process when it was based. The facts are not accurate.
Can I point out an irony here? That what is it? 40% of the list. So when they want to look at, you can get a list of the names, not look at them.
The ones who signed the
Right.
packets,
But
yeah.
you sign it. Well, 40% of them are private, right? To her as a candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I start looking at the offense reports and stuff, these guys, and I've interviewed 2 of the suspects and got firsthand information on how they did things. They went door to door. They never went to a grocery store or anything else. And they had full access to everything. And we so understand that when Governor Cox hires this third-party company, they have a database that they see everything, withheld and private, and they go door to door and get it. And then the lieutenant governor wants to flip it and say, well, now my opponent can't see it.
Right. So there's
But they can.
circulators
Right.
that use it to
There's-
gather signatures, but we can't view it. Even though we're candidates. And Phil was the representative at the time, and they were denied.
It's pretty brazen.
It really is. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's beyond brazen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the signatures. So we have never seen the packets. And then we go to court, and immediately after court, we say, we want to see the election returns. These are like normal things. They used to be on the county web pages. It used to say, because it would have no information about who voted for who. It's more about timestamps and ballot images and things. We asked to view those. Within 24 hours of our request, Deidre sent an email to all 29 clerks and said, this is not public information. Deny all requests. It is not available through grama, and it was not available through the courts. So she shut down anything. We can't look at anything from the election itself. And then we asked to see the signatures. They have a cure list. So there are thousands of people every year who vote with our universal mail-in balloting, and their signatures don't match. And a lot
On
of
the
them
ballot.
on their ballot. So if you're voting, you sign your name on the envelope, and often it's like youth, younger kid, 18-year-olds, and who are just haven't learned cursive, so they're working on their signature. Their signatures don't match. So the
What are they
clerks
matching
hold it
signatures to?
to
Driver's license?
to the
or-
digital sign that they did when they did their driver's license. So they're trying to match those two together. So a lot of them are rejected. So the clerks have those names. They have a very small window of time to contact all of these people to see if they want their name, if they have them come in and cure their ballot so that they could have their vote be counted. And we asked to help with that process so we could see the cured names. I, as a precinct chair, I was given that list prior to this, in a couple years earlier. But when we asked for it, we got it from 4 counties, and then the 4th county said, "Let me talk to Deidre to first make sure we're okay," and then came back and said, "Well, I can't give this to you," and nobody would give it to us. So everything we asked for was denied. The nominating petitions, we can't see that. We can't see any election returns, and we have a lot of concerns with the election itself because so Phil and I were a good team. I'm an attorney. I've got a legal background, and Phil is a CPA, and he's the numbers guy, and he crunches all the numbers, looks into everything. Michael's been incredible with the investigative, all the research he's doing. So we're working at this through different angles. But if you look at the actual vote on the election day for the primary election, Spencer Cox jumps out of the gate with a 40,000 lead on a number of votes. So he's got his high number. He ends up winning that night with only 35,000. And so if you look at the trajectory of his numbers, they go up high and then they just shoot. He doesn't keep that going. He just shoots right down. And the chance of that happening organically is 1 in a billion chance. So we have a lot of questions. And as Phil said before we even ran the race, he said, "I want an audit of it. If I win or if I don't win, either way, we want to be able to see, we want to be able to trust our elections." And when we ask for things and everything's denied, it just raises more questions. And as he said too, you could alleviate all of these concerns if you would just be transparent.
But why don't they? If there's nothing to hide, just shut the other party up. Say,
Yes.
here it is. Shut up and go away. It's all legitimate, right? Why won't
Exactly.
you just
Phil
say,
actually said that
did.
during the campaign. If you show me, the records I'm asking for, and you're right, then I go away.
I
Exactly.
go away. There's no more publicity. There's nothing. We're not sitting here on this podcast right here. No one's talking about it. It's not going to court hearing. Shut up the other side and get past it already,
Right.
right? You just be governor.
And then
You covered up.
Right. The Department of Justice now has recently contacted Deidre Henderson and said, "You are not complying with national voter rolls, the NVRA, and you need to have your voter rolls be public so they can be inspected to make sure that they're clean, because we know there's a lot of problems on our voter rolls itself. And having dirty voter rolls and mailing ballots to everybody, that is a recipe for disaster. It's terrible. So they wanted to be able to see ours. She resisted all of it. Those
still
efforts.
is.
She still is. Well, and
Just filed the
Did she,
dismissal
I was going to say, she filed for dismissal. When is that
in federal
gonna be
court.
answered?
well, I don't know, but the DOJ is looking at her, but that just adds to this whole question, this whole concern of no transparency on anything at all.
Yeah, because she's afraid it's going to come out federally, too.
Right. Right.
I mean, they're probably deathly afraid of all this coming out because they've dug a hole. It's getting worse because now it's not only did you commit election fraud, now you
You doubled down.
doubled
Exactly.
down on it. And that's just
Covered
adding
up.
up the
But
jail
she's
time.
magnanimously protecting the voter
Yes.
on our
Yes.
information.
When
She's
you
protecting herself at this point.
and you're asking, what information do you think the federal government doesn't have? I mean, they've got our social security numbers, they have our date of birth, they have all of that information. They just don't know which people are getting mailed ballots, and that's what they want to know. And for her to say like, "Oh, I'm trying to protect your private information," it's just another one of those kind of gaslighting things, or that it's trying to.
But the public falls right into her, at least my precinct did.
Right. So that's been our struggle this entire time, is we feel like what we need to do is just wake people up to it. And people are waking up. And I think once their eyes are open to this corruption, I don't think they go back to sleep, and they're frustrated. And
Well, I've been saying from the beginning that Cox has been illegitimate, but I'm having fights within my own family about that. Oh, he's a good guy. I'm like, no, he's not.
yeah, but now we've got evidence. We've got hard evidence that people can't deny. So
But to their credit, they didn't give up. As candidates, when they lost the election, I was kind of relieved because then I don't, again, I've invested a lot of time, but I'm only doing it if people are going to be interested in it, because I have no way of if I get the evidence, what am I going to do with it? And so, but they don't give up, and the people there's a core group that sticks with it and stuff. So I'm like, well, I'm in, and stuff,
right.
and then it just gets captivating and stuff. And I think that's what they didn't count on. I'm talking about the lieutenant governor and the AG.
Just everybody just shut up and
Yeah,
go
they
away.
think that people will just go away. That if you deny the grama request, and stuff, and Because at one point, I think they said in one court case, they said, well, Michael's done like 47 grama requests in the last 8 months. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want them to know what I was looking for. So I would do grama requests every week, and they would give me stuff, and then they didn't realize what I was looking for, and we kind of triangulated on them. And
It's incredible what you
information we
found.
needed.
And you've never seen the packet, but he's recreated them at home. So he's got all the,
Like
the
a cover
papers. And,
sheet.
yeah.
They made the mistake of giving me the cover sheet for a different candidate. And I said, okay, well, now that you did that, now I want cover sheets for these. And they've given me a number of them. And then we can reconstruct, what some of the things that went wrong. And then we know what to look at. But now we have the offense reports. I think we have like 8 or 9 offense reports now.
And those were all criminal investigations, the offense
criminal
reports.
investigations that were going on. And at one point, we only thought there was one.
Right.
So it's
Right.
incredible.
And,
Well,
but
we're
we-
going to get a copy of that offense report. We're going to post
yeah.
it on our website.
Oh, yeah. We got a Google Drive for the discovery.
We're going to post that on our
Everything is
website.
on it.
Right.
You'll like it.
And we feel a responsibility to stay in this because we were the injured candidates and we have the receipts and we have we feel like a unique responsibility that we need to do it, and that it's something that other people can't do because they don't have all the receipts. So we have to push on this. And if you know Phil Lyman, you know that this has been a big issue for him for a long time. He tried running a HB 371, which would have really cleaned up our elections, had us vote in person, and it was really just shut down fast by the lieutenant governor. Didn't get out of committee. And when he was doing that, I was running a statewide initiative called Secure Vote Utah, and with the same idea that we wanted people to be able to vote in person, get rid of the machines, have a system that we could trust. And we had a lot of support for that too. So I know there's a lot of people around the state who want to see our elections
We
paid
shouldn't
up.
have mail-in balloting.
No,
period.
we shouldn't.
Not nationally, not statewide. Nothing.
No.
You're asking for fraud. I mean, we had the same problem with President Trump. Why is the state of Utah having mail-in ballot? Why do we have all this stuff?
Right. For a long time, we were the only red state doing that too. And we were the first one
Because
doing
it's
it.
racist because some people cannot get to a
Their arguments are ridiculous,
They can't get their driver's license.
which is a racist comment in itself, I think, to
Right?
say that about certain people.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So I think highlighting the problems with it is a big win, so for people to realize what the system is allowing is a win, so that we can try to make some
and
changes.
we're not even to point 3, step 3.
But we might have covered a lot of it. We'll see.
Yeah, we can skip through.
Step 3, hide your signatures. Tell the public you have enough signatures to now have a second chance to be placed on the ballot. But when your opponent then asks to see your signatures, say no, even though petitions are public documents. And you let other candidate packets be viewed just days earlier. And then continue to hide your signatures after even 2 audits show that you are short on signatures.
Here's Tina.
Then have the GOP and the legislature also refuse to take any action after the audit showed that Cox was short, even though one of the audits was done by the legislator's own legislative auditor, and it was completed more than 2 weeks before the general election.
We've talked about step 3 is about the audit. So let's outline them. There's 3 separate audits. There's one that was done by the
John Dougal, the state auditor at the time, and that was released September 3rd of 2024.
the John Dougal one, and then the state legislator one,
October 15th, 2024.
and then this private one done with these CPAs.
It was done about December. And I don't know if I finished telling you, but what I think happened was first of all, they did it because they realized there might be a bigger problem. But in the event that they won their case and the judge let them see the packets, they were going to release, I'm theorizing here, they would have released the results of the third audit and said, look, we already know that he was 1,000 short. So, we're going to give
Try
them
to
the packets.
control the narrative.
Right. And to say, we already know that. But because they lost their case, they just buried the audit and didn't have a need to release it
Yeah.
Right.
until we got a new state auditor and she released it.
That's right.
The evidence and cover up their own criminal investigation into Cox's forged signatures. Have them continue to hide this information by lying to the court so that this information does not become public in a timely manner and cannot be used in mine and Phil's lawsuits challenging access to view Spencer Cox's signature petitions during the election. Even though we knew the exact name of one of the documents we are looking for and the name of the investigator and some of the witnesses, the people from the Attorney General's office, Lottie Pearson and Dan Burton, hid this information from us, hid this investigation from both the grama request and from the 3rd District Court. which eventually dismissed the case. Through what I consider divine intervention, a whistleblower in fall of 2025 then gave Michael Clara the 188-page document from the Attorney General's office that contained this criminal investigation regarding Cox's nomination petitions. This was the exact document that Michael had been requesting with the same case number and the same investigator, which the existence of the Attorney General's office had repeatedly hid. Then on January 28, 2026, Michael brought this document back to court, and under what's considered a Rule 60B motion, Judge Petit reopened the case after finding that the evidence proved there was, in fact, an ongoing investigation which started well before the primary election, and it was hid by the Attorney General's office.
The investigation had started in April of 2024, so at the very least it shows that there was some ongoing investigation at the time he was requesting records.
I think that was an uncomfortable hearing for them.
Yeah,
When you brought that up,
much
when he went to go reopen the case and brought the actual investigation, and for them to try to explain why they uncovered
That had
covered
been
it the whole
crazy,
time.
though. I mean, you've got 188 pages right there, right? I'm like, well, they lied to us last time. What are you going to do about it now?
Right.
yeah. The gal Maragani did a good job at,
He was the
with
attorney.
the judge, and she had to agree.
Yeah, and he brought up a case, I think you found it too, that said, Lonnie Pearson did this before. He
Yeah.
had documents before. They had to come to the court, and then they had to reopen the case. And so it is a pattern that's happening.
That same judge just had ruled against him in August for almost the same issue, that they were just not disclosing information.
Right. So I feel like they think they can just get away with this stuff.
Yeah, they're arrogant.
Yeah.
Yep.
They
And
just
they have
keep
gotten away with
squashing
it.
it, keep squashing it.
Right.
Right.
So this right here is the actual business card
Yeah.
that you've been talking about this whole
Yeah.
time. You got the account, the case number, the business card.
And it's from that investigator. She's the one, and she wrote the number down.
And then you get the actual document, the 122 pages. So if you forward
And it's
that,
AG 24170. It's the same number.
And you got that in July 2024, just a couple days after the primary.
Yeah. That was my
That's what
And I
started this
sent
whole thing.
copies of it to the records committee, and the executive secretary is going to say, well, you don't have any evidence, we're not going to schedule. Then that was bizarre. That's when I knew that it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It still is. But
They said we did a reasonable search in our office and couldn't find it, but yet they didn't ever contact the exact investigator, Mikhail Jordan.
So that was their excuse.
Yeah.
That we made a valid effort. It just wasn't there.
but it's like all you got to do is punch in the
Sorry.
number in your database, and it pops up.
My bad.
right.
so that business card matches this report then.
Yep.
Yes. If
AG 24170.
and it was hid from about July of 2024 until you never got it from them until
Never.
you went till the whistleblower gave it to you over a year later.
Right.
And then about 4 months later after that,
Right.
then you were back in court and they had never produced it.
Right.
So this is the judge that overheard it.
Yep.
And she specifically says, well, it looks like now they've got something. Where did it go from there? What?
We're still involved because, see, that happened in April. Well, no.
No.
The investigation. Oh, that's just when the investigation started.
She's
It was
January.
it was this year.
26.
that She opened up my grama appeal that was dismissed, that she dismissed because based on.
So she's reopened it up now?
Yeah, she's opened it up, and now we're going through discovery. So they've given us more records, and we still.
They're going to only give you the records they want to give you and stonewall the rest.
Well, in fact, they haven't responded in 2 weeks. Like we're on week 3, aren't we? I
Yeah.
think?
And what was the
Yeah.
first response? What they gave you? What the first?
Well, the
documents
first
they gave you?
response is they gave us 2 reports that we already had that I already found through grama requests. Well, the whistleblower and the other one. And then they did give us 3 additional reports of investigations that occurred into Cox that we were not aware of. And so,
Did they have any revealing information in?
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so we have a list of other things, but we're going on week 3 that they haven't responded to my attorney. So I think next week he's going to have to go back to the judge and
To
say-
compel.
And so, yeah.
And you term this as a process of delay and deception and
Yeah,
right
the
this whole thing.
Ds.
Yeah. So it is a process of delaying. Like you look at our court case earlier and they say, well, we can't do it. Can't give it to you now because this deadline already happened. And this deadline, there's always something that they said prevent that. You know, they're just trying to delay the whole process. But it's through this discovery that you were trying to find like the audio recording of that investigation that had happened earlier on, that conversation where they knew that they were short prior to printing the ballots. And we want more details on them.
Right. See, I think in the beginning, all they had to do is delay, you know, like when they're before election time, you know what I'm saying? That if they can hold them off until election time, I think they thought that was the finish line for them. These people would lose the election and everybody goes away. But, you know, that didn't happen.
Right.
And now they're in trouble.
They are.
Well, I don't know about that yet, right?
Well,
I mean, they're just so arrogant and they get away with things all the time.
No,
Let's see
they
what
think they
happens.
might still get to throw their weight around and still get away with it.
Yep.
But then our concern is we need to highlight it. We need to know who these bad actors are and who's doing it.
Why he's not rerunning in 2028. He's like, because all this is going to get dug up again. It's already squashed. We're going to continue to squash it. This just needs to go away. I'm not going to pull it up because it would mean jail time.
That's possible. Yeah.
I'm not going to run again. It's too dangerous at this point.
I mean, you go to social media and people have not forgotten the issue. You look at all the comments on social media and people are so frustrated. And it goes back to there is no transparency. There's questions out here. Now we have a lot of evidence also on top of just those questions, but there is still no transparency to the state. And they could have on Monday, they could have given us the records. It's not like it's too late.
I understand the no transparency. If there's nothing to hide, then just disclose it. If you don't want the public to hear about it, judges do not put non-disclosure stuff all the time. Just throw it in the courtroom and let everybody figure it out. And if they walk out of the courtroom and say, well, we lost, they showed us everything. We verified it all. We apologize to the public. Lyman can sit up there and say, we apologize, that we were wrong. They showed it to us.
Remember that case?
But they're not doing that.
The case you brought up with Senator Adams, that they changed the law. It doesn't make it retroactive, but the prosecutor said, we're going to go ahead and go with this new law. Well, in this case, because of all the stuff that's come up, we actually have new laws in place now. So this year, when the candidate is collecting signatures, number one, you can have a poll watcher there. So you can watch them verify the signatures. So if they pull packets, like if I'm a poll watcher and I see you not verifying and pull packets, set them aside, I'm going to ask, why? Why would you do that? You know, because you have to verify them in the order that you get them. So now you can do that. Candidates this year can now look at the packets of their opponent until like the certification date. So candidate will be able to look at all of them and can be able to tell if they're forged, then you can see that. You'll be able to see that. So there have been some improvements done, you know, that should help in the future. But then when we do a reset, she does a new grama request in November for the packets. And the thing that they come out with, tell us what was their first, why they denied it.
They denied, like, they say, well, we have a new law now, and it said that you can only look at it if you're a candidate. You are not a candidate. You're a former candidate. I'm like,
you're past the deadline.
You're past the deadline. Well, it said it because you're a former candidate, and so you don't apply. It doesn't apply to you. But if it wasn't written for us or for me, then who was it written for? You know, it said
they invoked the law. They invoked the new law to tell her you can't look at it. And then you responded, well, you know, it said I could look at them. So we didn't, let's go do that. And then they came up with, oh, well, you already did a court case and you lost, so we're done.
Exactly. And well, I get frustrated when I see these new laws too, because there was nothing in the law that said we could not see it at the start.
True.
And so for them to now make it and say, well, actually now we give you the right to what you should have had the right to do. And now it's actually contained and limited to a certain amount of time. Like to me, it's very frustrating, the whole process. Because if it was against the law, then why, I mean, she gave it to everybody else, you know, other people were able to see packets and it wasn't against law.
Step 5, do not allow the election to be audited, and then hide all the election-related documents. Before the primary vote, Phil had asked for an audit of the election, regardless of the outcome of the vote. Following the election, we sent grama requests to all the 29 county clerks asking for their election returns. Within 24 hours, Henderson responded and she said, all of the election returns are denied. You cannot access these documents through the grama request process, and you can't access them through the court.
You said the claim is that then we might contest the results. What information do you have, or what information are you seeing that you think you'd have to contest?
Zero. We can't get the cast votes records. This is the information that used to be put on county websites. And we could go and look and we could say, well, how did these precincts fall out in Salt Lake County? How did that measure up? Could I do some statistical analysis to see if the initial ballot drops on election night contain fake ballots, fake reports? It's something you could find pretty easily with the statistical analysis. At least you could see, oh, there's something here. This is irregular. You can do other statistical analyses on the CVR. And if this is not asking for anybody's personal information, it's asking for data, and you can do a statistical analysis on it is being withheld, folks. That in itself is evidence of withholding information.
So the election itself was very strange. On election night, Cox started with a lead of 40,000 votes. However, this pace was not maintained, and he ended up winning with only 35,000 votes ahead of us. There is less than 1 in a billion chance that this election could have happened organically, which is raising a lot of great concerns. These concerns, however, could be alleviated if Henderson would allow for an inspection of the election returns. However, all of these documents are still locked and sealed.
I ask you to doubt the doubters.
Doubt the doubters. It's so hypocritical because he's quoting one of the LDS church leaders right there. And why? That's heresy right there. You're trying to plead to the heartstrings, right? Again, if there's nothing to hide, there you go. Have fun. Waste time, money, do whatever you guys want to do, but you'll find out in the end it's all legitimate. Right?
Right.
But let me tell you what's more insidious, and I think we might be doing a podcast soon, or like just between the two of us. I want to really show how insidious this is what we know today was going on in the background and what they were saying publicly. Because when she's giving this speech at Hinckley Institute saying doubt the doubters and that Lyman is hurting the election system, he has no evidence, and she just goes on. That was in the fall of 2024. She knew that Cox was short.
Right.
And I want to be able to parallel that to show people in the future, when you hear government saying this, understand something totally different, the opposite may be going on in the privately, and they're not telling us.
Right. Yeah. She had her rhetoric was really hard. Like she tweeted that Phil Lyman is the only person who's tried to steal an election in the state. Like right in the middle of the criminal investigations and court challenges. And yeah, right. So, but I feel like that's her method to try to control. I mean,
she's taking the playbook from the left. The Democrats are always accusing us of doing the very same thing that they are doing.
That's right.
From one, Biden stole the election, from us not caring about the illegal immigrants, and we're the ones that have the problem. Right. Everything that they are physically doing, they project onto the left. And we did a whole podcast on just how the left projects onto the right. And we did it probably a couple months ago. She's taking that playbook right out of it. Why don't she just go and sign up?
Master at it.
Yeah, that's right.
And we're Democrats now. This is what we're doing. This is our game plan.
And the media just runs with those narratives too. Just furthers it on.
National media as well as local media. They just run with whatever.
Exactly.
Because they want to stay on the good side. They're anti-conspiracy because for some reason conspiracy theories don't do well in the public eye and drops the ratings. I don't know what it is, but I thought it was more conspiracy it sounded, the better the ratings. But
I think they wanted. You saw that the one slide of me in the courtroom, and I'm outside. Afterwards, I went and looked at the court record. ABC4 News asked the judge, "Can they record the hearing?" And she granted it. So they recorded it and they watched it. They know that the outcome was that we prevailed, but they didn't do a story on it.
Nope.
But had we not prevailed, they would have done a story.
That was your case that you revealed the investigation.
The one that just happened
So they're in the recording and they didn't report a thing on that.
They didn't report it because it could
That's
be
crazy
considered
to
a win
me.
for Lyman.
If I was a news reporter and someone just proved in open court that they had just
That the
lied in the
Attorney General
previous
lied
court and
the
they've
judge.
got evidence, I would have gone over there, grabbed the packet for you and put it on
Right.
camera. Looks like he was right. Look, it's right here. It's in my hand.
Right.
As a reporter, that would have been a huge story for me.
But they didn't.
Right.
It's
Did
just
you
their
imagine
bias.
this? Did Cox
No.
call him up and say, "Hey, I need you to hush this"?
I even called them out on it on X. I said, "Oh, look, they're writing a story about the turkeys on the west side of Salt Lake City, but they don't have." And there was like just some really dumb stories that came out the next couple of days. It was like, well, this definitely ranks above those.
It's like they have
just
an
wouldn't do
agenda.
it.
Let's squash Lyman. Even though I would have come out and said, "Look, who cares about Lyman? He's got
Right.
a report
This
right
is the
here.
Attorney
It's
General
physically in my hand."
Yep.
As a reporter, I would have gone over, "Hey, can I borrow that for 10 minutes?"
Right.
Put it in my hand. It's right here, guys. I got it in my hand. Put it on camera and said he was right.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Number 6.
Run as a writing candidate to confuse both the clerks and the voters with the intent to cause all Lyman votes to be tossed.
May have seen the latest on Phil Lyman. He's running as a write-in candidate for governor after Governor Cox beat him in the primary.
But he's not the only Lyman who's filed to run as a write-in, and this is where it gets complicated.
Offered to pay a Richard Lyman and his mom, Carol Lyman, $1,000 at a steak dinner if they ran against Phil Lyman. So his coworker told us that he had received a phone call about that.
Phil Lyman put out these tweets showing text messages from a man named James. James claims that he works with Richard Lyman and that Richard was offered a steak dinner and $1,000 by the Cox campaign to run as that write-in candidate. Strange, right? So we tracked down James and asked him straight up, did Richard Lyman tell him these things and implicate that Cox campaign, huh? James says yes. And then he said this.
I actually sent a message to my wife telling her what had just gone on because, you know, she's into politics. I'm not so much. And she said, I'm going to send this to Phil Lyman. And I said, well, okay. And then I sent Rich some texts because I was worried maybe what he was doing was illegal. And I thought it would be a good idea for him to record the conversation. He said he would, and that's the last I've heard about any of it.
Video is now emerging from a citizen journalist who caught up with Richard and was able to ask him a few questions.
Richard, come on, sure. We are wondering what you would be willing to talk to us. So what about your text message? Do you say you just made that up then? My coworker, nothing in that has anything to do with.
And then hack into my email and delete the email that came from the lieutenant governor's office saying that all you need to write is Lyman to be counted. But fortunately, I had screenshotted that, so I still have that email. And then publicly state that you did not officially hire this other Lyman. And then when the Decoy Lymans drop out of the race, collude with the media to confuse the public and only show photos of Phil Lyman when they say that Richard Lyman dropped out.
This is brilliant stuff.
This is getting worse and worse as we go along here.
Right.
You have someone openly saying that they got paid to put themselves on there as a write-in candidate to confuse it.
And that was cheap. That's $2,000. They did nothing.
Right. The whole campaign, it was every morning I'd wake up and be like, really? This is what's going on? Every day we had some crazy thing. And this is a height of it. But this happened, I was
To
actually...
the point where Channel 4 does a news report on it?
Yeah, right. Well, we spent several days trying to get someone to do a report on it. And it happened on September 3rd. It's interesting that all these things happened that same day. That was when the John Dougal's report came out. And that's when the conversation was happening behind the scenes. We find out all this about how they were investigating the forgeries. But at the same time, they're contacting him. And we heard it was somebody who reached out to him on a Sunday before or something and asked them to come. He tells a coworker, they asked me to run as a write-in. He's like, oh, this does not sound good. And that's what you hear. He texted him about it. And
it's probably illegal. You probably shouldn't do that.
Right. Exactly.
Light bulbs should be going off, but it was the governor that asked me to.
Yeah. Right.
It's got to be legal, right? It's the governor who's asking me to do it.
Yeah.
What's illegal about applying to run for a campaign.
What I would guarantee you is happening now is now that that is out in the open, he's probably gotten more than $1,000 now to not talk about it.
Probably.
I could bet money on if someone pulled his bank account records and traced some money, he's probably got 5,000 to 10,000 plus that he's received from the Cox campaign now, and just don't talk about it anymore.
Right.
Hush money, right? And they're going after Trump for hush money.
Right. I remember the day it happened. So it was a Tuesday, and I remember we got the message, and we're like, "Oh, is this real? Could this really happen?" And I jumped in the car and I grabbed my little boy. I'm like, I'm gonna go up there to Salt Lake because I didn't know if this guy was going to be on our side or not, and try to be helpful. Anyway, I didn't know if he was actually going to go through and do it. This whole thing, we were trying to figure out what was happening, and I thought, oh, I better not go up there. I can't be involved in whatever happens. And so he went up. So he goes and files apparently with the Lieutenant Governor's office on that Tuesday, and then we see it posted on the website the next day. We're like, it's real. He really did this. This really is going on. And then the next day on Thursday, later on, we end up seeing an email that was sent from the Lieutenant Governor's office to this Richard Lyman and saying, you didn't finish the paperwork. So if you want to get on the ballot, you have to get your mom to finish registering as your lieutenant governor. So there are two Lymans on there, right? But when I saw that, I'm like, whoa, the lieutenant governor's office is sure invested in making sure that these guys are very helpful, much more helpful than they've ever been with us, to make sure that the process was done. No one
made that effort.
Right.
No, and it was weird too, because his response to her office, I don't know if it was to her or to her office, said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your email come in at first. It came in from a Salesforce address, so I didn't recognize it coming from the Lieutenant Governor's office." I don't know. That seems a little fishy there too. But so he ends up filing.
Doesn't matter who it is. Nobody from the Lieutenant Governor's office would have put the effort out into fixing that.
No, they would not have passed the deadline 2 days later. So he ends up filing, and then I don't know if you caught that because I went through that so quickly, but I'm like, okay, if they did that to confuse the clerks, I'm going to go back, because I had asked them before, what do we need to put on the ballot? Because we were unclear with write-in candidates. Do they need to put both my name and Phil's name, or both first name, last name? We didn't know. So they had written us a letter, and the email response said, all you need to do is write Lyman, or any variation of Lyman. Just that's all you need. So that's all we had used. If you saw any of our signs, they just said Lyman for governor. And it didn't say Phil on anything. Our shirts didn't say Phil. Everything was Lyman. Our shirts, our hats, our signs, all of our messaging. And if we have evidence now that the Lieutenant Governor intentionally misled and encouraged this person, or someone from their office or connected to them, had intentionally put this person on the ballot, knowing that we had been given guidance that only say Lyman, that's a big deal. So that's when I went back in my email. I'm like, I've got to find that. I spent a couple of days. I'm like, where did that email go? And I just barely had received it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So then I went into my, I was using Google or Gmail. So I went through my Gmail history. Yeah, that's the email. That's right. I went through my Gmail history, and it said that an unknown device had accessed my account on August 26th. I'm like, oh no, August 26th. So I thought, if somebody got it, did someone actually get into my account? It said it came from, they used Firefox, which I don't use, and it came from Payson, and I wasn't in Payson, so those things didn't match with me at all. And they accessed on August 26th. So I thought, well, let me go in my trash and see did someone actually delete it and put it in my trash? I'm going to find this. So I go to my trash. My trash says it was deleted on August 26th. So it was supposed to be deleted every 30 days. Somebody had deleted it on that day.
That is crazy.
So I had a screenshot of that too. Are
you going to have anybody run forensics on your phone to prove?
Well, I reported to the FBI, and they looked into it. They said, don't tell anyone, because if you tell anyone that we're looking into this and it's related to an election, then we'll drop the case. So I didn't say anything. They did a grand jury investigation in November where they went in front of a judge to open up my records to look at it. Then the following January of 2025, they came back and said, we can't find anything. Like, I found more in my 10-second search on Google than you found. And then recently I did a FOIA request because I want to have the information related to that grand jury investigation. I want to know more. And their response, I just recently got back, said, this will take us about 3 years to respond to your... to your request.
I'll wait.
Right. So we'll look into it. So I'll do what I can to look into it. But meanwhile, so we know that we've got these Lymans on the ballot. It's clearly election interference if these allegations are true, because you cannot induce someone to run for office with the intent to control the outcome. So we went to the Magna Police Department or Unified Police, and we went to, and I talked to Sean Reyes in person too about it. And there was a report filed with Sean Reyes's office. They didn't do anything with it, as far as I know. And the police officers, they took it seriously, but then it was taken out of their office. When we first reported, get this, when we first reported it to them, they said, okay, we can see this is troubling. In case of election interference, the way that the code is written, we have to report everything to the lieutenant governor's office. So they said, we can see that there's a little bit of conflict here, but that's how it's written in code. It has to go to the lieutenant governor's office if there's any case of election interference. So not only does she run with the governor, oversee the entire election, but she oversees, her office is involved with these investigations as well. So it didn't stay with their office. It went to the FBI, and then nothing happened after that, as far as I'm aware. So this is
just the fact that he's on the ballot, period, that another Lyman, there's nothing that coincidental. It doesn't exist in life.
What would be the motive, right?
Yeah, there's no coincidences in life. I mean, to have another Lyman on the ballot is...
And not on the ballot, but as a write-in, right?
As a write-in,
so that so if anybody writes Lyman, the clerks will look at it and say, it's unclear. We don't know which Lyman you're talking about. We'll have to throw them both out.
And whoever's idea that was brilliant. Worked very well.
It
We're
happens.
going to throw these votes out. That means Lyman's going to get less votes. It's
another one of those Democrat playbook things that it happens, and it has happened in other states, and it's dirty. It's very dirty.
So what I don't understand in my area, Salt Lake City, right around that time, a school board member is he's going to run for re-election. He reaches out to his opponent, his challenger, and says, look, if you drop out of the race, I'm going to run for city council next year. I'll make sure they appoint you to this position. And it's a text message back and forth. And so the challenger turns him in to the police do a report, it gets kicked over to the district attorney, and they prosecute this guy for that, which is much less than what happened. And he ends up doing a plea deal and resigning from office, and I think he's on probation and stuff. But my point is, that's a lesser issue than this. And
was handled swiftly and
investigated it, but this issue can go to the FBI and they don't, come to any conclusion.
Don't look at it.
And how hard is it to find out? You go talk to this guy and say, even if you threaten him and say, look, you're going to get prosecuted if you don't tell me how you guys came about this.
This investigation would be so easy.
Yeah.
Just so easy. Just 2 or 3 people and it'd be over. Right?
Yeah.
Go talk to the Lyman.
But they don't, there's no incentive.
Go research his email, his phone records, and find out who he talked to. Go talk to that person and say, okay, who told you to do this? And I don't want to go to jail, so this person told me to do it, and just followed up the food chain. It would have been that quick.
Right, exactly, right.
That quick.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's bizarre.
It's uncanny. There's no possible way in this planet that there could have been 2 Lymans as write-in candidates. Right. There's not possible.
He filed like 15 minutes before the window closed, too.
Yeah. And to have the Attorney General office call him, he didn't do it right. We got to hurry up and fix this.
Mm-hmm.
No, they wouldn't have cared. It was all
right.
This isn't going anywhere. It's him and his mom. I mean, who does that?
Right.
No, but we got to make sure he has on there, because we got to be able to have a reason to throw out votes if we need to.
Mm-hmm. And I should clarify, because you showed the image of the email. The only reason why I have the image is because I had taken a text, I screenshotted it, so it was saved on my photos, on my camera roll.
Thank heavens.
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
That's crazy.
I document everything.
It's like the 2020 elections, where all of a sudden there's a ballot dump and Trump was winning, and all of a sudden you see this spike and nothing happened, don't look here.
Exactly.
Right? And all the strange videos in Atlanta where all of a sudden a big old carton ballot started mysteriously just appearing out from underneath tables and stuff like that everywhere, and midnight people showing up at ballot boxes and stuffing ballot boxes. I mean, nothing going on here. And then well, there's smoke, there's fire. That's just the way it is.
Exactly. And we were talking about the court earlier. So we are not getting any help from the law enforcement or anyone else. And so we thought we're going to take this to court, because if this goes in front of, we got to have some clarification about whether our votes were going to be counted or not. And so we did sue them in court, Richard Lyman, and said that we think that there's evidence that's showing that you are doing this for election interference, that there's someone behind this who induced you to run. So that was the crime, is inducement. And he stipulated, which means they reached an agreement with us, that he would drop off, so he'd no longer be running. So kind of admitting that that this was, he wasn't doing it for the right reasons. So he did stipulate and drop off. And then the case,
did that protect him from being prosecuted by doing that? Was that an agreement?
That was all civil. Right?
Yeah, that was civil. Yeah. So, yeah. I don't know how, there's nothing that was happening with the criminal investigation, but then they, the clerks, so that happened. This is right before the election. But then on Christmas Eve, we had a follow-up hearing with them, and the court dismissed the case and charged us attorney fees for them, which was about $40,000. I don't even know how that could happen, because when you reach a stipulation with someone, that means that there's credibility to your case, that they're willing to concede issues on it, and that means that it shouldn't just be dismissed. But they dismissed the case and charged us. We were able to negotiate the fees down to about $20,000, but it was just outrageous that you have that interference, and then you have to, no one else is going to, law enforcement's not going to do anything about it. So we have to take the action to go to court, bear the own costs of our own court case, our attorney fees, and then theirs on top. It was really unfair. As candidates, we were just trying to run a race. We were just trying to be
federal
candidates.
court?
That was in district court. No, it was a state court. So it's just the burden that they put on us to challenge the establishment. Who was it? I can't even remember right now which one that was. But it was Christmas Eve was our hearing, and then we got the word after that charging
I've been in
attorney
plenty of
fees.
court cases myself, and judges never stick to the side with the attorney's fees.
No, it's a new law. It was called a UPAPA motion, and so it's a public expression. But just the fact that they'd stipulated with us, and then they reverse course, and a couple months after the election. It
should have almost been the other way around.
It should have.
You guys should have.
We had hundreds of people contacting us and saying, okay, so he drops off, and then the lieutenant governor, and it is in code where she is supposed to inform everybody if someone drops off. That's what happened.
Them.
Yes.
Sorry.
So she said, somebody dropped off, he's no longer a write-in, and so Richard Lyman is no longer a write-in. Well, nobody knew about Richard Lyman to start off with, because that was kind of, I think the idea is to keep him keep him quiet so people didn't know that there was the two different Lymans. They had to distinguish it. So nobody knew that he existed, and now Richard Lyman drops off, and everyone thinks it's Phil. And we get hundreds of messages, and they're like, why would you drop out?
As delegates.
Yeah, everybody. And I made this reel. I put them all together, over 100 and something of messages where it's like, oh, I can't believe you dropped off. I'm so sad. I heard this. And even the clerks posted it because people were voting at this time. And they had notes that said, Richard Lyman is no longer write-in. And I had people call me from the polling centers and say, I can't believe you dropped off. So I called the clerks. Can you take that down? It's causing more confusion than helping us. And then
that's working very well.
Exactly.
Two write-in candidates for governor have dropped out of the race. Both Lymans all of a sudden drop out.
Right. And then the picture of Phil with Lane, who ran with them months earlier. But yeah, that's it. And then when people did,
you can't make this stuff up. Yeah, how did they get the story of both of them right out? They didn't get anything from Phil.
Why he was a write-in anyway? Right. What were they disputing that made Phil a write-in instead of on the original ballot?
Well, it's the whole idea of the primary. So they said that Cox won at the primary. So you only have one Republican who goes on after the primary. So people can ask to be like a non-affiliated with a party, but you would have had to have registered for that back in January.
As an independent.
And we weren't. We were the convention winners. We were the nominees. We were the ones that should have been there with the R next to our name. So we legally couldn't have put our names on the ballot without anything on there, but we should have had the R. But yeah, you showed that slide, and then there's the other slide that when people did a Google search and asked for Richard Lyman, every news agency, the only picture that comes up is Phil.
That's probably more Google than anything else, but
it was because that was the headlines that they were doing. KSL had the headline of the picture with Phil, which showed the actual document that they were doing. But Richard Lyman existed in the public sphere. He had a public Facebook. Yeah, look at that. The search at the top is Richard Lyman.
Richard Lyman.
And then those are all like KSL and ABC. And those were the pictures that came up when you pulled up Richard Lyman. It came up
like
Phil.
Tribune. Is it the Desert News Channel, Dispatch, KSL?
Right. But they could have easily pulled a picture of Richard Lyman because he had a public Facebook page and there's pictures of him out there. So, but there was no attempt
news
to do
agencies could have pulled him, but that wouldn't have gotten any media because no one knows who he is.
Mm-mm. So it felt very intentional, this misleading.
Well, it's obviously intentional. I mean, not even to worry about the whole search engine thing. The fact that they literally say that 2 write-in candidates for governor have dropped out, that is nefarious in and of itself.
Right.
One of the things I learned growing up as a kid, and particularly in Scouts, was to be prepared. And particularly when it comes to my feet. You do not want to be out in a situation where your feet are incredibly uncomfortable and makes you absolutely miserable, makes the rest of the day absolutely miserable. So you have to go out there in the right equipment, whether that's hiking in the mountains, whether that's fishing on the stream, it's working out in your garden or out in the yard, or it's going out on the town or to the nearest rodeo in a nice pair of boots. You have to go out prepared so you look good, feel good, and most importantly, it is comfortable. Because again, there's nothing like being miserable walking around all day long. We want to introduce you to 3 different companies that are supporting this channel. We have Durango Boots, which provides the best Western wear and boots that money can buy. So you'll have the look, the feel that you want. There's also Rocky Boots for that great mountain wear, that hiking wear, and just getting out into nature and being prepared for what you're confronting. And then there's Mucky Boots or Muck Boots, which will provide the perfect waterproofing that you need for fishing, hunting, and again, getting out in the yard and working in the mud. These are great companies that supply a great pair of boots for you for any need, for any occasion. So again, go to the link in our description or click on the QR code that's coming up on your screen for any of these great sites, whether it's Western wear, whether it's the outdoor wear and getting up into the hills and the mountains, or whether it's muck wear that you need to be able to work around the garden or go fishing or hunting and not walk around with wet feet. These are great products at great prices that will keep you perfectly comfortable all day at the same time that you're looking good. So trust these products, whether it's Durango, whether it's Muck Boots, or whether it's Rocky Mountain Boots or Rocky Boots, and go to those sites using the link in our description or QR code that's popping up on your screen. Again, the link in the description or QR code that's popping up on your screen, and support our channel. That's nefarious in and of itself because they did it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably Cox's campaign saying, I need you to release that both of them have dropped out.
Mm-hmm.
That was they probably got an anonymous tip or something like that.
Right. Oh, and then when we did find out, when we got those text messages, we thought, okay, the people need to know about it, that there's this Richard Lyman. They've got to clear it so they know. I mean, one, just so that they could indicate Phil Lyman on the ballot. You know, we needed that message out
Well,
there.
I remember getting the text message. She got a text message saying Phil's dropping out. I'm like, no.
Right.
I mean, I was a delegate. And I got that text message.
Mm-hmm.
And then people were asking me. I'm like, no, he's not dropping out. Write him in. Write him in. I was texting everybody. Write him in.
Yeah. Right. It was so much confusion. And even when it started, we spent the whole weekend contacting every news agency and saying, okay, look, we've got these texts that show that this person wants to be a write-in and it's coming from the Cox's campaign. Can you look into it? And nobody would pick up the story. And so we went the whole weekend, and then probably until Monday or so, or Monday or Tuesday, then we just released the text messages from Phil's account because we then it needed to get out there. We wanted it to come from a third party who could actually investigate it, because that was not our role. That was not something we should be doing. They needed to investigate it, and it never happened. So it didn't enter the media until here when they
Well,
showed
what's absolutely shocking is even with a fake write-in candidate, even with the news media saying that Phil's dropped out, even with all this stuff that's going on, Phil still got 200,000 write-in signatures.
Yeah, it's incredible.
In record.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine what he would have done without that.
Right.
Right. It's, again, I go back to the whole 2020 election with President Trump. He had more people voting for him in 2021 than record.
Mm-hmm.
And then for some reason, you look at President Biden's people who voted for him, it was this obscene number that doesn't even exist, right?
Right. And then Phil's name was not even on the ballot. And I had one person come up to me and say, I was going to write in Phil Lyman, but I couldn't see where to write in Phil Lyman because I didn't understand, like, you have to write in Phil Lyman. I mean, it's so difficult, that process of trying to write in somebody. And so, but 200,000 where people actually knew to do that and who were not deceived by this whole thing. Yeah, it's amazing.
I wrote them in. I know a lot of my families wrote them in.
Awesome.
Step 7. And if all else fails, place a special cite hole above our name so you can see which ballots voted for Phil Lyman and Natalie Clawson in this Utah's universal mail-in ballot state. So despite this fraud, this corruption and collusion, we still had over 200,000 write-in votes, which is the most that's ever happened in United States history. The people of Utah deserve clean elections that we can trust, and there must be accountability for those who break this trust. Follow along as we continue to expose this corruption.
That's a peephole that happens to be in the right spot.
The peephole, I don't think.
We had several counties, people send us pictures of them, and your envelope and your ballot are printed by the same company, and they match. They're both unique for you because you live in one precinct. It'd be different than your neighbor who lives in a different precinct, have different people that they're voting for, if that makes sense, because you have different races, and it's unique to you. But we saw 3 different counties that showed us that this peephole, the cite hole moved depending on, there were different spots on the envelope, and all 3 of them matched up exactly over our names.
You're going to need to put those 3 together and take a picture of that.
Yeah, I have 2 of them. I just run that video.
Well, to go back to that again, it's right out of the Democrat playbook, right? Because the exact same thing happened on Trump's election. I don't know if you guys saw that. So when a lot of those ballots were submitted, there was a peephole that showed his ballot, that showed his name on it, and it showed a part of it where the circle had been darkened. And that was the only place where the peephole was in several different counties. And so that the people county could just toss the entire envelope without even opening it because they could see where that peephole was. And that was all over Newsbacks and a few other places that reported on. None of the mainstream media showed that, but Trump had a lot more people voting for him that were counted because of that same peephole. So it's not a false statement that peephole is real because it happened to Trump on the national level. And then
right, and it was such
out of the same playbook.
Yeah, it was such a big concern that Deidre had to address it. So I don't know if you saw that image, but that was a tweet from her that said, people are concerned because they see the cite hole on the envelope. That's just so we can see if there's a ballot inside there. I mean, we've come a long way. In Utah, we used to have a privacy sleeve inside of those mail-in ballots so you would make it sure you can't see the ballot inside. And now there's an actual hole right over there, over some of the names. Yeah. It was another one that was like, is this real? How is this real?
You could put that peephole any place else to see if there's a ballot in there. You put it right there. But again, the same thing happened to Trump. They put that peephole right over where his circle was at, just to make sure it was marked or not marked. And people knew that they could slide a hand, toss a ballot.
Right.
That's what they would have done. And that happened back in 2020. And then same thing's happening now in 2024. So.
Right.
So let's go over to you, Michael. What else are you working on, and what are you seeing happening in this? Because
that's it.
You're the investigator on this.
No, just the one issue.
And can I say,
I discipline myself.
He's doing this all on his own. I mean, 100% volunteer. He's incredible. Just looking into these issues because you care about clean elections and exposing corruption, and
I say I'm a dead moon shining off a borrowed light. I'm just, because people are interested, then I'll stay interested. But I'm just doing the one thing. Huh?
How hopeful do you feel that we'll have some resolution or?
Well, I think we already have. I always use the what is it, Federalist 51, the checks and balance that if we want change, you have to get one branch of government to check the ambitions of the other. And so we've done that. There's laws that have been passed. There's some that weren't successful that we'll probably still pursue next year. Now we have things in the courts, and I'm hopeful that somebody in law enforcement will start investigating this, whether it's federal or some county attorney, but it's not going to be anybody on the state level.
Yeah, someone's got to get a hold of Pam Bondi.
Yeah.
And have her assign someone to investigate this on the national level, because it's not going to happen on the state level. It's not going to happen. Right. We all know that. There's no way that happens on the state level.
And Utah is on their radar because of how Deidre's reaction about the voter rolls and suppressing those.
Yeah, I mean, you guys need to be doing whatever you need to do to get Pam Bondi on this. Even though I don't have a lot of confidence in Pam Bondi, but she's still got to get on top of this. So where does it go from here? What's the next court hearings? What's going to happen in those court hearings? How long is the discovery supposed to be for?
Yeah. Well,
what's happening over the next couple of months on this?
My most recent one was on Monday. So when we were in front of Lonnie Pearson again, the one who denied the documents and who's now been promoted to be over the whole office, over the grama records office, he denied our case to be able to see the nominating petitions for Spencer Cox. We are in a period that we can appeal it. So we're considering that. We'll likely appeal that, and that can go to the 3rd District Court. And we are coming with a lot of evidence showing that these should be transparent. These should be shown to the public. So we have very strong
But the
case.
evidence you're showing, which we've already pointed out, is all the stuff they were hiding.
Exactly.
In 2024 that should have been given to you guys when you had the first case. And so what she's appealing now is the same thing that got dismissed in 2024.
Yeah, it's showing there was a cover up, and that was why it was concealed and should never have been concealed. So that's what's going on in that area. We Phil did he was the first to challenge the voter rolls and how they are being withheld from scrutiny and from the DOJ, but he took that as a lawsuit and partnered with the Public Interest Legal Foundation from DC, and they filed a lawsuit for that last year. It was dismissed. They said that he didn't have standing, which was just crazy to say that because you couldn't have more standing than Phil did on that case. So he's considering appealing that one. So those are 2 big lawsuits, and then the DOJ is doing theirs, so that's a big deal too. And then you're still doing more grammar requests.
Well, the discovery.
The discovery is a big
Yeah, I think the discovery will.
Because your court case is still in court, and they're just going through the discovery right now.
Yeah, well, discovery, consisted of the judge ruling in our favor. Then we go into, they call it meet and confer, which I think we've exhausted that. We only had one meet and confer. Now they're ignoring my attorney's emails for 3 weeks. So the next step is, I guess I'll check in with him and say, are we going to court next week or at least file, to tell the judge, you need to compel them to cooperate with us. So we'll see.
Well, the video definitely has to come out. That is just given. That recording, whatever that is, that audio, has to be come out. And then all these packets, it has to come out. It doesn't matter if the judge, again, just says, look, for your eyes only, this is not going to be released to the public. I'm putting a box around this thing. It doesn't leave the courtroom. But everything needs to be transparent. I don't know why there's still such a fight being transparent.
Well, there's audio, there's body cam video of like when the auditors would come to the Attorney General's office. Like, for example, John Dougal, there's no reason why he would go to the Attorney General's office to go look at packets that were flagged and pulled out of the process, other than he's counting those towards Cox during his audit. And there's body cam video of that. So that's one of the things on our list that we're saying you should give us. But that's why they're fighting, because it's going to show, how they, lied about these things and how they're covering it up.
This is just a massive cover-up. I mean, obviously there's a cover-up. So look, we can't keep complaining about transparency, right? Because there's an obvious reason they're going to squash, because they're just flat out guilty.
Right.
Flat out guilty. They're going to squash this. Why? Because it means jail time. If this got out in public, people are going to jail.
Right.
And they know that. And that's just flat out. And people are going to do whatever it takes to not go to jail. I mean, look at Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
Right? They're going to squash whatever it takes. They're going to bend whatever rules it takes. And they're going to try to do it as slight as hand as possible to try to make it as least detrimental as possible to themselves. Right. But in them, they're all in now. We do whatever it takes to this point because we do not have any other options. Their backs against the wall.
Right.
And you guys are going to have to go into it with that mindset that they're going to do whatever it takes to keep this squashed. Right. Whatever time they've got to elapse, whatever stalling they have to do, whatever stonewalling they have to do, it's going to happen. Because why? Because people will go to jail if they don't.
But in the meantime, people at the ballot box, Davis County, they should not really reelect McKenzie and, not have him in office.
Yeah.
We should do the same thing with Derek Brown, when his time's up, is to, remind people of this.
Right.
Man, I like Derek Brown. Voted for Derek Brown.
nice guy. A lot of these people are nice people, but it's just really dirty. Yeah. You have to be able to trust our system and trust the people in charge of the system. And they have not given us reason to find that trust.
Well, even our legislatures, they did an audit and they figured out that some of these things were not right, and he was short. Why didn't they just roll with that? Well, because they're all the SB 54, same SB 54 people, our own Utah deep state that's going to squash a lot of this stuff.
A lot of people feel intimidated and threatened, though, their positions, and they don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. I think this is revealing. It shows what's happening in Utah. It does it when we started off with this too, but it answers a question for all these people from the outside looking at us and say, why are you moving to the left? Why are you voting for these people? I'm like, I don't know if we are voting for these people. We need to have more transparency on the process. And as Michael, he dug in so deep with the signature fraud and knows how they're being manipulated, how the names were taken in and out of Vista, how the signatures were not being applied correctly. And you have seen how that relates to our elections themselves, right? And so once we realize the system and how corrupt it is at that level, we have every reason to want to know what's going on at the elections itself.
Systems that are corrupt.
Yes, and it's the same things that are being, if they can manipulate it at the signature level, they can easily manipulate it at the voting level, where we come in with the same thing with ballots and signatures, and it's the same process of Vista. And so that gives us even more reason that we need to demand transparency on our elections themselves. We need to have a system that we can trust where we're not relying on signatures. You don't go to a bank and say, I forgot my ID. Can I just sign my name so I can withdraw money? Like, you can't do that. And we rely on looking at someone's signature, and it's not helpful. And they did some of the legislation, some's good, some I'm not as optimistic about all our legislation that changes, but legislative changes. One of them is that they want to say that you can do put your last 4 digits of your social security number on your ballot. And as we found out, Aaron Davidson is the clerk in Utah County, and he's done a fabulous job. He's pushed back on the lieutenant governor more than anyone else. And for that reason, he is in the hot seat with Mike McKell and others who are trying to go after his seat.
I saw that one trying to squash that one, because they're all saying the same thing. No one's got the budget, no one's got the manpower to verify social security numbers. That's not going to work.
And Aaron's doing a fantastic job, but he pointed out that when there is a discrepancy between your 4 digits of your social security number and a signature, then they'll go with those 4 digits. So now you don't have to have a matching signature. You just have to know those 4 digits, and you can vote for anyone and all these votes and these ballots can come in. So I think we've got to keep highlighting these problems.
I don't know why Utah's got the problem. I mean, nationally right now, we just got done speaking with Mike Kennedy about the SAVE Act, about making sure illegals are not voting, that they prove that they're a U.S. citizen to vote. I mean, we're going through all these things to try to make sure that there's no fraud in elections. But yet here in Utah, we're supposed to be one of the most conservative states out there, the deepest red state out there, and yet we still have mail-in balloting.
Right.
We have SB 54. Things are just destroying this state, and the public has no idea about it. None. And the bigger problem is half the public out there, to be honest, to you public out there, don't care. I'm not political. I don't get involved. I mean, when I was out there trying to get signatures for Prop 4, I couldn't tell you how many people, I'm not political. I don't get involved.
Can I say about, just to run a parallel here on Prop 4, because I understand the candidate signature issue. I'm watching X, and I see on February 27th, Gerke from the Tribune says, the Davis County Clerk just sent me a text. He's done counting signatures for Prop 4, the repeal, that they've done. They counted all the signatures in the packets. All they have to do now is remove signatures. And then on Monday, I see they have almost 2,000 more signatures. And I'm like, how did that happen? If he was done counting on Friday, so then I just put that in my mind. And then 2 days later, I see Aaron Bolin from Utah County on Facebook bragging about how he got the clerk to change, and to accept rejected signatures. I'm like, what? So I do a couple of grama requests and find out that's exactly what happened. That when McKinsey rejects signatures because the date on the first line is wrong, then he rejected it.
Because the date is wrong?
Yeah, and that's the law, that you have to turn in a packet within 30 days. And you determine the 30 days by the date of the first signature, right? So he rejects it. He did that during.
Or if there's any signature in there that's beyond the 30-day
No,
window.
this one was just, the current law is just the first line.
Okay.
And I think that back in the day when they did the tax, the food tax and the flag, he was rejecting entire packets, McKinsey was. And you know, so this time, you know, he did the same thing. Okay, fine, he's rejecting it. But then he goes back, and I did a grammar quiz and got the emails. He goes back on Friday night and probably Saturday, and they accept rejected signatures. And then when I post that online, people like Aaron Bolin said, "Oh, you want this to fail, right? You're against, you know, this repeal Prop 4." And I'm saying, I'm not. That's not my issue. My issue is we got to do this fairly, and you're cheating. You leaned on him. You send him this email, and he changes. And my point is, that's the mentality that they have. It's to win at all costs. You know, and they don't have the ability, you know, like I have the ability to say, look, I might not support their policies, but I don't care about those anymore. I care about fair elections. And if we can't get fair elections, then there's no reason for me to be arguing policies with people. Same thing here. If you're going to win Prop 4 because you got the Davis County Clerk to bring in 2,000 more signatures, that's wrong. And, you know, and then I get messages like, you know, from Trevor Lee and people saying, you're going to hurt this, you need to take that down. And so I'm not taking anything down. It's wrong. and it's probably going to not pass anyways, but not because of that, you know, because they're pulling signatures in Salt Lake County. But I you know, that's just my point is that, you know, they'll just cheat. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as they feel justified in whatever their cause is. And in this case, they didn't want Lyman, so cheating's okay.
Right. We saw there's a school board candidate in Salt Lake County who was 10 short, and she was disqualified. She didn't pass on for that.
And that's the Salt Lake County clerk looking at that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But it does show, I mean, the signature count matters, and you shouldn't, it's not fair to be like, oh, you're 10 short, so we're not going to let you do it. And then you guys are thousands. But you're our preferred candidate. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it does matter. And we care about, fairness and the law matters, and it should be consistent for everybody.
And that's upsetting about Prop 4 because we need Prop 4 to go through. We need Prop 4.
You're saying it's not going to go through?
Well, I'm predicting just on the numbers I've seen, you know, like we should know when we have Friday. We should know
how many
by Monday or
signatures got
Tuesday.
removed?
Well, yeah, because they only went to the limit. You know, they should have tried to get all 29 counties, but they're only at 26 counties, which is a limit, and they're going to lose. Like Reby, I think is the one in my area in Salt Lake County. They removed like close to 200 2 days ago, I think. And I think they're only 200 over right now. So it's probably going to drop, you know, before that.
Yeah, hopefully not, because we need to get rid of Prop 4 as well. It's just how the state is getting corrupted, because they do whatever it takes to keep Prop 4. They do whatever it takes to keep SB 54, and then it's just
Well, I think
surprising
in this case, the
how far down
establishment
the line
wants it to, you know, they want this initiative to pass. You know, I don't doubt that, but it needs to be done fairly and not because you rejected signatures. You couldn't do that to my clerk.
Well, they're just putting too much money towards it to get rid of signatures. There's just so much.
Yeah, is that fair? Because people don't know what they're signing.
Right.
I had people in my own family saying, oh, they're saying that I signed the fraudulent one, and this is the right one. You know, that's nefarious as well.
Right.
Yep. And there's just so much outside money coming in to just dissuade people, and they're not telling the truth. I had people that signed mine that they were already being told not to sign it, and they're telling me what they're telling. I'm like, that's not even true.
Right.
We were at our county central committee meeting. I think that's what meeting we were on. It's Saturday, on a Saturday. And as we were checking in, they had people there signing them. And then I went to check in for convention or the meeting. And my husband said, this guy says that, he goes, to go take your name off. It's the wrong one. And I said, what? The guy checking me in.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, where'd you come from? Who's this guy? So I went in there and I think I text my representative. I said, you got somebody checking people in who's lying about the Prop 4 signatures. And he said, where is he? By the time they went out there to check, he was gone.
Wow.
This crazy stuff.
Yeah. It just shows a problem. People don't know. Deidre, they want to treat these like they're ballots, but people don't know what they're citing. So they're not, these are not ballots. These are petitions, and they are just, it's just such a...
Like, I don't know, this young kid at the door seemed friendly.
Right.
All right. He says I
just
signed the
have to
wrong
go
thing.
back.
Okay.
I just have to go back to caucus because
Right, exactly.
he shouldn't have got out of caucus, period, end of story. Who cares about the signatures? Lyman won with 68%. That should have been game over. Now we got a signature mess. We got a fake write-in ballot guy. We got fake news going out here. We got all these other problems that have all stemmed from signatures. Get rid of the signatures, get rid of the problem. Right? SB 54 should not exist. Should have been Lyman right out of caucus. End of story. Game over.
Right.
Right? And
yeah, I'm with you.
This is the corruption that is caused by
You could make a movie out of this, and people would go, "That's so unrealistic."
But let me defend signatures again. that had they done it correctly, and people have asked me, and I've asked myself, because I'm always looking for motive. What's the motive here? Even though I don't need to really know it, is it you had 30 more days to collect signatures. You were paying somebody. Why didn't you just get the signatures? Why did you have to cheat? Have the county clerk verify. Well, what I find out is that, and these are the two suspects, two of them I talked to, they said people wouldn't sign for Cox. I could have one of them had 3 petitions and people, because candidates are not as confusing as a referendum or initiative. You're talking about a name. And he said that people would sign the other two. I think he had Wilson. Cox. He had Wilson in some state another legislature, but they said I'm not citing the Cox one. And I even see it in the offense reports where they're calling somebody and saying, we want to verify I'm an agent with the Attorney General's office. We think your signature is forged. Did you sign this? And for Governor Cox? Hell no, I would never sign for Governor Cox. And they write this in the report. So I think there is a problem. My point is that if they had done signatures correctly, I think they couldn't even do that. They weren't able to get.
Well, it's just all finding that he wouldn't have gotten on. That just shows how unpopular he was, that he wouldn't have gotten on even with signatures. But that still does not justify SB 54. There is no justification of the story for SB 54. None.
I'm not saying
all SB 54 is a reason to commit fraud.
Right.
It's a reason to buy an election, to use money to buy an election, get yourself on a ballot. There's nothing else. I can't stand that law. And it's got to go.
It puts the big money into elections.
Yep. Well, I
agree.
Creates a lot of problems. So anyway, everybody out there is going to be able to determine their own stories because all this is public information now. Yep. I'm going to get those documents from you. We're going to put those up on our website.
You've got to follow Michael Clara on X too, because he's putting it all out there, arguing it really. I mean, all the data. It does a great job putting all the information out there.
So Michael Clara is at CLARA. Michael Clara on X.
And then I'm on X too. I'm Natalie for Utah. Natalie Clawson for Utah, I think. No, it's just Natalie for Utah. But I do more probably with Instagram and Facebook too. But it's Natalie for Utah there.
Yep, and you've got your YouTube channel too. You got a lot of these videos up on there, so you just look up Natalie Clawson on YouTube and find these same videos and more.
Yep, and Phil Lyman is in the fight too, so he's been helping with all these big issues, and election integrity is his number one concern. So.
Again, why does Utah have mail-in ballots still? Well, I mean, why? Mail-in ballots is a prescription to commit fraud. That's all it is.
Right.
The only people who should have mail-in ballots are you're passing a certain age and you literally can't get out of your house, or you're military, and that's it.
Yeah, and those are called absentee ballots, right?
Yep, absentee ballots.
People can do that.
You can absentee it all you want, but mail-in ballots are standard procedure here. I mean, I get my mail-in ballot, and I'm still getting my mail-in ballot the wrong address. My mail-in ballot, so. It should not exist.
There's another good Instagram account. It's Election Integrity, and Steve Aced. I don't know if you've been watching that, but he's done a good job. He's got copies of some of the voter rolls and is going to houses where there's reports that it's a report that I think that the realtors use or the post office use when they know somebody has left. And so he's compared the difference between who's no longer living there but still having ballots leaving that house with their name on it. Okay. So he's putting out a lot of videos that are really good so people can see with their eyes, like, this is actually happening right here in Utah. So it's really important. And it shows his point is not trying to say who was at fault here. Was it this person? Because we don't know if that person cast the ballot. We don't know if it was someone in that house, but it just shows the problems with the system. And that's how he's trying to highlight.
Just get rid of the mail-in ballots.
Right.
Evil never goes to sleep.
In the problem, in SB 54, in the mail-in ballot, let's just stop the fraud, period. It's not complicated, but there are certain people in power that want the fraud because they get power out of it. I mean, just like the left wants all the illegals to stay in the country. They don't want to deport anybody. They want to keep them here. They're wanting to make sure they get their Medicaid and their food stamps, all that. And they want to keep themselves as sanctuary cities and states. Why? Because they want them voting and they want them counted in the census. And they'll fight that no matter what happens. It's the same thing here. There's people in power that want to keep SB 54. They want to keep mail-in ballots because they know how to manipulate the system. They're doing it on purpose. They're manipulating the story. They're manipulating the media. They got their own set of rhetoric out there that stays in everybody's mind, and it's proliferated so much that people believe it. And
they're tenacious here to hold on to power. That bill that I told you Lisa Shepard was running, it was to make candidate petitions be counted by each county clerk. And Lieutenant Governor and Brian McKenzie were up there fighting it, and they got their way. So they're maintaining that for candidate petitions, if they're statewide or federal or multi-county, Brian McKenzie is the one that's going to count them.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so we need to decentralize it. Anytime you can decentralize is better.
Yep.
And that's what the process. That's what we're seeing right now is centralizing power and centralizing our elections in the hands of just a few.
They want to get rid of the Tina Cannon's office and make that underneath the governor. I mean, it's all centralizing this power. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Even the Supreme Court this last time, now the governor decides who's the chair of the Supreme Court. And that's, I've heard from court members, that's a really big concern right there. Because
the court members elect their own chief.
They should.
How's the governor even involved? That's what happened to separation of branches here?
Right. And last term, I know Cox wanted, there were efforts to have the governor appoint the state school board and the treasurer. And everything. Yeah.
And he did get away with the state records.
He did. That's right. He was doing that.
Put his own guy.
Let's just put a dictator in office and call it good, right?
Yeah. But our old system worked so well. So when I did this initiative, we said, let's just go back to how it was. You vote in your precinct, and then you can go in there. You see your neighbor. They have different yard signs on their house, but you go vote in person. It's a very unifying community thing that you're voting in person together. And then you have the precincts are 1,250 people. It's not too big. And then you cast your ballot. And when the election judge looks at it, they read the ballot, and they have two people on either side. They count out. They do the 5 ballots at a time, and then they compare the two people on the side, write down, record it, and then they report back what numbers they're at, and you do that after every 5. I mean, it's such a great way. You've got
do you remember
people.
I remember being an election judge, at the school down my street, and then we would post the amount of ballots that, like I would drive them down to the clerk, me and somebody else, we drive them down to the clerks this is in Salt Lake. The deputies are there that, you sign off. But they posted on the school, on the door, how many ballots we had. And then you would look at the ballot returns by precinct and make sure as an election judge that what the county clerk had posted were the same amount of ballots. So there was no way in that system to cheat, to add ballots like when you see that. And I remember thinking, well, you couldn't have done that back in the day when we were, the way we were doing it when you showed up to the polls.
Right.
So you're right. So we've lost total control or accountability. We don't know.
I think Davis County is trying to part of our business during caucus as a precinct chair was to ask them to run as election judges. So I do that.
Because that stayed in code since then. So they don't do as much now, but at least we've preserved that in code. But we need to change the system to go back to how it was. I mean, I volunteered a couple of years ago to help audit the election. I went down to the county clerk's office, and they said, these are the 4 boxes Deidre wants us to audit. That's what we did. I promise you. I promise. And the clerk brought in a couple others and said, we'll let somebody here randomly choose 2 others that we'll add to it. But they picked those. So there is so much control.
You picked those 2 boxes too. So they did about which one you picked, right?
Exactly. So the system worked great before. We just need to decentralize it, and there's solutions out there. And I think what we need to do, I think this is important that we're telling this story. People need to know how much interference is happening, how easy it is to happen, how blatant it is, how they're just doing it right in front of our faces, and blazing, I guess. And but there are ways that we can help fix this, and we can't vote ourselves out of it. We can't just vote harder. We've got to actually change the system.
I would completely agree. And the biggest part about that is just public awareness, because people just don't know about it. They ignore it. It's like the monkeys, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, right? And they choose to ignore it. I don't get involved. And there's just too much of that, because there's a very, very finite amount of us that are always involved. And it's usually the same people that run for delegate all the time, same people that get involved with the candidates, go and speak to them, and then the rest of the public just ignores it. And that's how stuff like this happens. People do not get involved. This does not happen in my state. My state is not corrupt. We're a Christian state. We're a Mormon state, whatever you want to call it. And we're good. And that's just not the truth. There is more fraud in Utah than you can possibly judge, and we got to root that out.
Right.
No, look for we'll link their accounts on there. I'll tag you in all the posts so that your viewers can see what you're doing. And thank you for everything that you're doing. You know, people are only going to care when something's going on.
That's right.
And we just got to get what is going on out in the public, because nobody knows about this. Nobody knows about this. I mean, I guarantee it's less than 1% of the state that knows what's happening right now in the court system between Cox and Lyman.
Or in actually, I've had people, when I said we would be speaking with you, and they're like, it's over. There's nothing they can do now. And it's like, that's not the point.
Thank you. That is not the point, exactly. Yeah. Because what we need to do is just highlight it, let people know
like
what's
they
happening.
think you're doing this to somehow overturn it. Like we're going to find out in the last 3 months that Phil's governor now.
We have to have clean elections. So we have to do everything we can to have clean elections. It's fundamental to our country. I mean, if we can't trust our elections, we can't trust anything. And it affects policy. It affects our children, our next generations. We have to have clean elections.
And we appreciate it, because if that was all you cared about, you wouldn't be doing this, because it would be to no avail.
Right.
Anyway, this is God and Country. Again, look down below to get our merch and support the channel. Like, subscribe, and share. As always, we need your help, particularly this podcast, because this information is just not out there and needs to get out there. So help us out with that. This is God and Country. See everybody on the next video.